Hey guys, OJ Albini here, bringing you guys another Draft League movie. I know it's been a minute, but I finally have a season I feel like is going to be a good time for you guys to watch. It's going to be our season of the WWCL. Not necessarily like a big, well-known Showdown League. It's a Showdown League that's near and dear to me, though. It's one of the first maybe 3 leagues I've played in. It hasn't had a season since Gen 7, so it's that old. And I definitely wasn't around for the first season. This is ran by my buddy Chris, or CV Hulk, and they ran a run-back season with the popularity of draft popping up. There's a bunch of old guys that played in the past and wanted to get back into the game and wanted to run a season. So, I had to run it back with some old friends and stuff like that. So I was really excited. A couple of us have been playing, but a lot of the league hadn't been playing anymore. So I thought it'd be fun to jump in there and also kind of flex my muscles a little bit, show that I haven't stopped playing, unfortunately. So I was ready to jump in and have a good time. If you guys do enjoy today's Draft League movie, be sure to drop a like on the video, as well as subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 3,000 subs, and if everybody who watches this today subs to the channel, if everybody who watches today subs to the channel, we'll make it there. Also, I have another league that I do plan on making a movie of if we hit the like goal of 50 likes. If we get 50 likes on this, I have a Nat Dex league that I want to make a movie on that also includes custom Mega Pokemon GPL, which was our first movie on the channel. I played another season of it, and I had a really fun 2 teams. So if you guys want to see that, gotta hit the 50 like goal. Show out, share this video with your friends. Alright, with that being said, I really quick want to go over my draft. I think I had an absolutely shisty, disgusting draft. As you can see, our first pick was Dragon Ball, and I want to reiterate too that I was, I think, pick 8 or something like that. I was 7 or 8. I was right in the middle end, so a terrible pick, and the best Draft League Pokemon of all time came to me. Now, maybe not the best one in the format right now with Shanpao existing, but I think it's number 2, especially because none of the high tiers in this league can Terra. It's kind of like a middle ground between high tier Terra and like low tier Terra that you've been seeing in like Wi-Fi leagues like PPL, SPL, things like that. It's kind of right in the middle, so more like tier 2-ish Pokemon can Terra, and you'll see we have some pretty awesome Terra captains. This was a tiered draft too, because all the guys in this league are, old heads. So the drafting was a little bit more restrictive, but I went and grabbed my S tier, A tier pick in Dragapult first. I mean, I don't really have to explain why this thing's good. If you haven't seen me rant about this being the best Draft League Pokemon of all time, look through its move pool. You'll see how deep and immense it really is between status and momentum and U-turn and coverage. And then look at the stats. 142 speed is just unmatched. There's really very few and far in between Pokemon that can come close to reaching this, stat of what? With a timid nature or jelly. 421 is incredibly fast. We have a solid attack stat and a very solid special attack stat. Not like the strongest in the world, but on top of our immense move pool and high base power moves, as well as our dual stat that's basically unresisted, Dragapult is always going to be very, very good, especially with apt breakers and hazard support. Speaking of hazard support, I went and grabbed Samurott Hisuian next. I had this in a couple leagues recently, but this was the first one I tried it in, and man, I love this thing. This thing's incredible. If you don't know what Samurott does, and what makes it immensely better than regular terrible Samurott, is the sharpness ability, boosting slicing moves by 1.5 times, and then we have good old Ceaseless Edge, which is a very strong attack that also just immediately sets up a layer of spikes. And the fact that it doesn't have any immunities, and the only way you don't get up a spike is if you miss that 10% of the time, which is honestly a very apt risk to take, because doing good damage on a move with no immunities and getting up a spike because of it is so unbelievably valuable, especially with a Pokemon like Dragapult that's going to be U-turning in and out, in and out. On top of that, we have great moves like Aqua Cutter and what's the other? Razor Shell, which are both boosted. We also have access to Sacred Sword, which is boosted. We also have access to X-Scissor and Dual Priority and Aqua Jet and Sucker Punch. We can also Swords Dance up. This was pre-DLC, so I can't Flip Turn, but I can do that now, which is pretty crazy to be completely honest. But it even has ground coverage. This thing's incredible. It's solid mixed as well, too. 100 special attack is not to be scoffed at. I've definitely run mixed. You can even run Air Slash and get the sharpness boost, which I have also done. So, pretty strong Pokemon. Samurott's a really, really strong mon, and it fits perfectly with Dragapult, in my opinion. I think it's one of the best Dragapult pairs that you can possibly have. So, next up, we grab Sylveon. I wanted to grab a solid fairy immediately. I think Sylveon is very, very good in this meta. It checks a lot of the top tiers, especially when they cannot Terra. Spadef Sylveon in this meta into, things like Iron Bundle, even checking mons like Valiant very well. it's very, very solid. It can live one from pretty much everything in this meta. It throws up wishes, it hyper voices, it can also baton pass. We are allowed to dry pass in this league, which is awesome. And we can even calm mind up, and there's not a lot of steals in this format either. There's not a lot of steals in general. So there's matchups where Specs or Scarf Sylveon is going to be very, very strong with that Pixelate boosted hyper voice. If we're playing against something that might be running a Throat Chop, we can always run Q Charm and Moonblast instead, which will always put us in a good spot. But yeah, I'm a big Sylveon guy. I'm sure you guys know this. This is one of my favorite fairies draft. It's one of the few fairies that I consistently always go after. So we got it here. Now, next up, I was going to grab my Terramons. Only C tier Pokemon we're allowed to Terra. So I guess it's like in tier 3-ish kind of area. I would think like 10 to 11 points on a point system is around where these mons are kind of priced. But I noticed there was 2 Pokemon. I'll talk about the second one later because I ended up getting both of them, thankfully, that were pretty significantly underpriced in my opinion. Now, this is going to be our first Terra Captain. It can Terra into 2 different typings, 1 stab, 1 non-stab, and I picked up HISUAN and Lilligant. I'm so excited. I am so excited. I was so excited to use this thing, and let me tell you, it was so much fun. This thing with hustle boosted attacks, when we get up that victory dance and boost our attack, speed, and defense, we can run a wide lens to make it to where we're not missing all too often. This thing's incredibly strong. It's incredibly strong. We had Leaf Blade, Close Combat, and Ice Spinner is really all you need in most matchups, to be completely honest. But we do have other cool options. It's a Defogger. It can Encore. It can Healing Wish. It can even Poison Jab if you need it. It can Fast Sleep Powder. It does so many different things. This is our Terra Captain. The typing for Stab I went with was Fighting. I feel like Fighting is a little bit more spammable. Close Combat's really strong, right? Now, the non-Stab typing, I forget what I went with originally. Maybe it was Flying. I really don't remember, actually. But I know I ended up changing it. I think it was Fire I had originally. But I ended up changing it to Rock, because one thing this really struggles with is defensive fires. They can kind of eat it alive, and Rock kind of flips that that matchup on its head. We're no longer weak to it, and we blow them up. So random, you know, Charizards, Arcanines, Moltres, things like that. I like how I said Charizard, like that shit was getting drafted. But, you know, mons like that will now be able to break through a little bit better with that Terra Rock aspect, and Close Combat's just a nuke on its own. This Pokemon is really, really fun. It also has the option of Chlorophyll if we end up getting some later, so we'll see. Next up, I grabbed Bronzong. Again, Bronzong Sylveon is such a good defensive core, and that, honestly, even with Samurott, is also a really solid defensive core because Samurott's really bulky. This thing, it does what it does. I talked about it in my GBU draft analysis recently. It gets up rocks. It always does. It checks what it needs to defensively, whether it be with like a slow gyro ball and body press. We have great coverage all around, as you can see, obviously. It's not the strongest thing in the world. It's a bit passive, 89, 79, but regardless, it's still going to be very, very good and doing what it needs to. It can also set up Trick Room if we do end up getting some Trick Room aspects, so yeah, I'm definitely a big Bronzong fan. Great mon, for sure. Now, keeping with the, you know, theme of bulk, we end up getting Mudsdale next. Now, all of these picks aren't necessarily in order, too, because it's kind of like based on how they had on the dock with the tiers and stuff, and that's just kind of a quirky part of tiers drafts if you guys haven't been playing draft for a long time and don't remember how that used to be. But I got Mudsdale. I needed ground. I needed more rocks, right? My only rockers right now were Bronzong. That's it. So I want to make sure I secured another good rocker. Mudsdale is going to do that. Again, really loves being paired with Sylveon. This is that Fizz Death Wall with the Spineth Wall of Sylveon. It's going to receive Fat Wishes. And honestly, offensively, people forget, but he has 125 attack. I'll pull up with a Banded Mudsdale. I'll Banded EQ in Close Combat and Heavy Slam through your team like it's nothing. Stone Edge. It has like perfect coverage offensively. It's just a bit slow. Very good defensively, gets up rocks like it needs to, can roar things around as well, which is really clutch pre-DLC. Now, Roar came back as a TM, so a lot of Pokemon got it back. But before the DLC, there was not a lot of phasing, and I love the fact that Mudsdale was a phaser. Obviously, you're not running own tempo, really. You're typically running stamina, which is going to give me a defense boost anytime I'm hit with an attack, which is, again, incredible. So next up, we're going to talk about a Pokemon that I ended up picking in the last round, I think, just because it was solid enough on its own. I grabbed Grafaiai. It gives me a Ghost immunity, as well as a big nuisance to a lot of teams, and that Grounded Poison. My team was pretty T-Spike weak in the sense that, like, I'd be kind of forced to run Boots in a lot of T-Spike matchups. If I didn't have a Grounded Poison, at least kind of threatening, you know, the removal of those. And Grafaiai was kind of the Pokemon to do so. Now, it does a ton of different things. The only thing that's really holding this thing back is its very mediocre stats outside of its speed. But the speed is nice. It's a good speed tier that we don't already have right now. And it has 3 great abilities. Unburden for, like, SD variants is always a really, really cool option. Poison Touch, we can, you know, U-turn around and poison things, which is always awesome. It gets moves like Knock Off and, you know, things like that. Low Kick for steals, like, it's a pretty solid mod in that regard, but the main thing is going to be Prankster. Prankster Parting Shot, Prankster Encore are the main reason I kind of wanted to grab this Pokemon, because I think it's very, very good as an annoying nuisance support Pokemon, at least in my opinion. I really do enjoy that aspect of it, and I think it can be very, very strong in doing so. It's really going to punish, wrong clicks, passive clicks, or even setup moves and things like that. I like that aspect of Grafaiai a lot, so that's why we ended up grabbing it here. I think it's pretty solid. It doesn't get Toxic Spikes, though, which I did not learn until the end of the season in a game where I was building with it, and I guess you'll see that one later in the video, right? But man, was it frustrating. Now, earlier in the draft, I ended up getting a really strong offensive piece that was really low in the tiering list. Not him. He's not really low, but we'll talk about him in a second. My bad. But that's going to be Tauros. Again, it's also another normal, but I'm not really worried about Tauros' defensive typing, because on this team, I'm not going to be using Tauros as my defensive switch into Ghost, right? It's going to come to 1 or 2 matchups, and there are going to be matchups where Tauros is just incredibly strong, just as it's always been. With Sheer Force and a Life Orb, it's going to be very, very powerful. With Body Slam, Close Combat, and Earthquake, we have great coverage moves overall, things like Rock Slide and Iron Head, and even random special coverage moves, like things like Thunderbolt and Flamethrower and Ice Beam. If there's a mon that's 4 times weak to those moves, I can very viably run it. Even if I have 40 special attack, I can very viably run those moves and do a lot of damage. I've seen so many Fire Blast and Ice Beam Tauroses in my day. Zen Headbutt is another option that we can obviously run, and then we have other cool moves as well, so definitely a really strong Pokemon overall. I like Tauros a lot. It's always been one of my favorite low-tier Pokemon to draft, and I think it fits this team pretty darn well. Now, what we just saw is going to be my second Terra Captain, and that is going to be Hisuian Arcanine. Also in C tier, I think this Pokemon is very, very underpriced, and this is probably the Pokemon I was most excited to going into the draft, wanting to try. It's so strong. It is so unbelievably strong. With Rock Head and both Flare Blitz and Head Smash, what switches into this thing? Now, our Terra typings on this thing are going to be Rock, because Head Smash is very hard to switch into. If I'm Choice Band, Terra Rock, Head Smash, your Steel types are dying in one, bro. But on top of that, I ended up going Terra Normal, because one, the option of Choice Band Extreme Speed is always going to be very nice when we're Stab, but also Double Edge is another Rock Head boost move. So these 3 moves plus Extreme Speed are always going to be very difficult for a lot of teams to switch into. But we have other great options as well. We can Close Combat. We can go ahead and get up Stealth Rock. We can even Morning Sun or Will-O-Wisp and be more defensive, because we do have the Intimidate option. But I think in particular on this team, Arcanine is not here to be defensive. He's here to click a button and kill something every single time he comes in, and I'm hoping he does that. Next up, I grabbed Kilowattrel. I like the speed tier that it offered the team. It kind of gave a gap in between Dragapult and, the Tauros Grafaiai part of the team, as well as Hisuian and Lilligant. It also helped me kind of deal with bulky waters, which is always really, really nice. Another ground immunity, which takes a little bit of pressure off of Bronzong. I'll be honest, Kilowattrel never came to a game. I wanted to mention him because he was on the team, but I'm not a big Kilo guy. I don't know. I know a lot of people love Kilowattrel. I've just never been a big fan of the mod. I think it's very, very underwhelming, and it just kind of was here, right? Okay. Then, our last 2 picks, I kind of alluded to it earlier. I grabbed Torkoal. I had so many extra points, and I was looking, I was like, man, I don't need anything. I guess I need some removal. Okay, Torkoal fits that. Oh, it gives me Sun for my Arcanine. It gives me Sun for my Hisuian and Lilligant. So this is, not necessarily a Sun team, but is a team that benefits from Sun, if that makes any sense. My Lilligant can run Chlorophyll now, pretty viably, and get, an actual benefit from it. It could run it before, but now we, get something out of it. And on top of that, my Arcanine Flare Blitzes are going to kill everything. They're just going to kill everything. But outside of that, Torkoal is a solid Pokemon in its own right. It gets up Stealth Rocks, it Rapid Spins, it, throws off Lava Plumes and burns things. It can get off rocks, it can go ahead and yawn things. Solid Pokemon for what it does. It's not going to come to every game, but I like having this Sun aspect, and I felt like my team was pretty complete without it. And then lastly, again, extra points, nothing fit. Why not? We're going to grab Scovillain. Good old jeans wearing Scovillain. Hold on, let me see. Does it show his shiny in here? It doesn't. He looks like he's wearing jeans and his shiny, and it makes me really upset. But outside of that, this is a very strong Sun breaker. There's not a lot of, Chlorophyll Blaumons in Paldeodex. It's mostly, kind of, some reason Sun's good is because of photosynthesis mons. But this thing with Chlorophyll becomes actually decently fast. It can attack from both sides of the spectrum, and is very, very strong under the Sun. This thing with a Life Orb is very, very powerful. Like I said, you can run mixed variants, but realistically, most of the time, I feel like I'm probably going to be running special, or at least specially based, and I'm going to click buttons. That's it. It's not really going to do much else. I'm not bringing a defensive skill villain. I can tell you that right now. Moody is banned, so I'm definitely not bringing like a sub-leech herder set or anything like that. I'm just going to click Overheat and Leaf Storm and Solar Beam and Flamethrower and Giga Drain, and maybe a Stomping Tantrum here or there. Maybe I'll Will-O-Wisp something. If I didn't have something like an Arcanine, this definitely would have been a Terra Captain, been like Terra Fairy and probably Fire. But couldn't have, you know, Terra on all of them. And it wasn't a Pokemon that felt needed. It was just on the team because it was good. And it kind of fit offensively, at least. So we have a lot of really cool toys this season. I'm definitely really excited to try out this team, or I was, and I'm excited to show you guys the games right now. Let's go ahead and jump into week 1. Alrighty guys, week 1 we are going up against Lindo. Lindo actually recently started uploading himself. Again, I know he uploaded back in the day, but I'm going to link him down in the description. I know he uploaded this whole season as well, so if you want to go check out his run, he'll be down there. He was also our week 1 opponent. Now his team changed a ton from week 1 onwards, so I don't even really have a huge recollection of his original team versus what it ended up being later on. So the team builder portion is kind of going to be me guessing a little bit, but you can see the 6 that he has. He has Enam I, Regieleki that can't Terra, I believe it's Terra Band, Abomasnow, Gastrodon, Quillfish, and Annihilate. I think there isn't a single Pokemon on this team that can Terra that he brought. So I think we didn't have to worry about Terra this game if I'm remembering correctly. And go to the team that we brought. First up, we have a Specs Dragon Ball. I mean, if you look at his squad, it goes absolutely crazy, especially if we get Spikes or Samurott, which I definitely plan on doing so. It goes absolutely insane. Shadow Ball blows up the Dragon Resist, and then Draco kills everything else. Spec Shadow Ball is also really nice into something like a non-Terra 8 because he's going to immediately pressure and break it, which is awesome. Then we have a Sash Lead Samurott. We are just 3 attacks taunt on this set. Max speed, max attack. Pretty simple stuff. We're here to lead it and get up as many spikes as humanly possible. We have Aqua Jet for any shenanigans. And then we have Taunt for things like the opposing Hisuian Quillfish and things like that. Then we have a Wincon Hisuian Lilligant with Clear Amulet. We are Leaf Blade, Victory Dance, Close Combat, and Ice Spinner. The Clear Amulet at least covers the Quillfish. I believe there was another Intim on the bench, but it didn't end up coming, I think. But in general, look at Fighting plus Ice Spinner into this team. It doesn't have a switch in. I guess Annihilate, but if I can chip Annihilate into range of either a +1 Leaf Blade or just chip it in general to where it's dead, I'm going to be in a pretty good spot. I can't get Intim pivoted either, so we're going to just click buttons with Lilligant hopefully this game. So, yeah, we'll see. Then we got Bronzong. We are a pretty spadef set here with Iron Head, Earthquake, Stealth Rock, and Protect. Very good at checking things like Enamorous. We also pivot in things like Gastron if need be. Get up a rock. Same thing with Abomasnow. We are kind of walled by the opposing Annihilate, but honestly, it's not that big of a deal, to be completely honest. Then we have Heavy Duty Boots, just Wish Tech, Calm Mind, Sylveon. Again, look at Fairy and look at this team. I know we're pretty spadef on this set because it's meant to check a lot of things as well. But offensively, it does really well as well. Once we get boosted up, we're going to do a lot of damage. So that's nice. Heavy Duty Boots for any spikes the Gastro wants to get up. Then again, spikes. Then I'm going Rapid Spin Torkoal. It's pretty fish-diff here. Lava Plume, Rapid Spin, Yawn, and Solar Beam does pretty well in the matchup. Checks some of the physical offense, gets away rocks, and also resets the weather. I think there was a Terracid Titan on the other side, if I'm remembering now. So this was a good Titan check. Got rid of the snow so it wouldn't be faster than everything and could take it on pretty well defensively. Alrighty. That being said, we're going to start off the game. I do, like I said, just lead off with my Samurott because it's here to get up spikes. We're going to see a Rocks Annihilate, which makes it much less scary. I'm just going to go ahead and get the Ceaseless Edge off, do a clean 44, which is awesome. Out comes the Hisuian Quillfish. Once again, let's just get up on the spike. I don't need to do damage to you. I need to get up spikes. I go for a Taunt this next turn to stop it from getting up hazards of its own, which it does elect to go for a T-Spike, and then I get up my 3rd layer right here on this Enamorous. Now, it's supposed to be leftovers, it's a little bit scary. I think I just go ahead and Razor Shell to get some damage off on it and see what it wants to go for. As a Razor Shell does pop, gets the defense drop on the Quillfish as well, which is nice. We are at -2, but we're still doing decent damage. That's -2 doing 37 to this Enamorous, which is pretty darn strong. I think at this point I do like to pivot out to see exactly what it wants to go for right here. We do see a superpower, so it is a physically based Enamorous, at least to boost on that physical side to break past my Bronzong and hopefully check it. But as long as we spam Iron Head, we should get it quickly in range of a Shadow Ball from Dragon Ball. Next up, we do Iron Head and take out the Hisuian Quillfish sack. Out comes Annihilate, and this is basically a KO. We are going to go hard into Samurott right here as a Rest comes out, and that's a little bit scary. We will take a Rage Fist from here, but he's back up at full, which is a little scary. He is faster, throws off a big Drain Punch, as we just throw off a big Razor Shell. Get a big defense drop, but that's also a Defiant Boost, which is a little scary. Aqua Jet this next turn is inconsequential. It doesn't really matter if we get this off anyways, because our Pulse is going to revenge it, but we might as well get off chip where we can, especially if it's like a random max speed F set, and I don't know, maybe I don't kill, who knows. But regardless, even though this thing is really scary with that Defiant Boost, I'm just going to come in and click Shadow Ball, and this is a KO. Qwilfish is dead. I have 3 spikes up. This Gastrodon got 2-hit KO'd anyways, and it just gets taken down by the Shadow Ball here. Next up, Regieleki is going to come out. I make the hard Sylveon play. I did not expect the Rapid Spin to come out. I expected a Volt Switch or something of the sorts to maybe want to pop to gain momentum. So very aggressive play by Lindo, but ends up working out because the 3 spikes that were kind of hampering him right now are gone. Though if he was Boots of Bomb Snow, it didn't really matter. And I'm not super worried about the Annihilate now that the Chesto Berry is gone. I can kind of just always come in and Shadow Ball. It's better than risking like a T-Wave on my Dragapult, because then I can very much so lose to an Annihilate if it gets up a bulk up. Next turn, it's going to Volt Switch. I should just throw off a Hyper Voice. I don't need to predict around this thing. I'm just going to get off some damage. Out comes the Enamorus, kind of screaming Iron Head if you're coming out on a Sylveon while you're that low. So I am going to make the pivot out into my Bronzong, and from here, free Iron Head. There's not really great switches to Bronzong at this point, so that's obviously great. Bomb Snow is actually the elected pivot here. I'm going to go hard Torkoal because it prevents any kind of Veil going up, which I think is really important. I also don't check anything else in this team particularly well. I can live an Enam hit unless it's Earth Power and Special, and like just kind of mixed. So I am going to Rapid Spin this next turn though, as he does pivot out, knowing he doesn't kill me with Earth Power from full. Out comes my Hisuian Lilligant on the Regieleki, and this seems weird, but I outspeed this thing in the sun due to running Chlorophyll this week. So I'll be able to knock it out. Out comes the Abomasnow, and despite the Snow Boost, Buddy is not living a terrifying close combat, so we do knock out Aokiji, the Abomasnow. I love the One Piece nicknames, by the way. I know he's a big One Piece guy. Out comes Enamorus right here. I'm going to make the pivot into my Torkoal, again, just to kind of sack it off. We do see a superpower, and in my head, I'm like, okay, if he's full physical, then I'm able to take this on well. It turns out he is mixed, but not very invested, so we actually barely live that. We get off a big crit Lava Plume with a burn. Crit really didn't matter. We just need to get off the damage to put him in range of Dragapult, but because that wasn't the case, I think I ended up going out into my Lilligant Hisui and cleaning up the game that way. I can just Ice Spinner into this and close combat into the Alecki, and that's a wrap. Ain't much you could do besides that, right? So we're going to knock it out. It definitely dies from 83. And we're able to take home a nice week 1 dub, 4-0. Samurott put in a ton of work. The spike got spun away, but it didn't really matter because it kind of got the chip that I needed on a lot of things. Things like Gastro were the things I really needed spike chip on. Things like Annihilate. So once I was able to do that, I think my offense was able to overwhelm pretty well. But yeah, that's the team, or that's week 1. I'll be right back with week 2. Alright, week 2 we're going up against Liam, or Mac Moxie, Moxie Mac, whatever you wanna call him. I don't know the correct order there, because I think it's different on Discord and on Showdown. But he has a pretty scary squad, as you can see here. He's rocking out with the Fortress, Meowscarada, Iron Moth, the Florges, Tauros Paldea, Aqua, and a Dragonite. Neither of which are none of these monster Terra. I believe he left his lower tier Terra captains on the bench at home. You can see the 6 that we ended up bringing. We'll go over their sets really quick. We're rocking out with a Willow Hex Pult. I think he does really good here. Willow is very free. And being able to burn things like Dragonite is very valuable in my opinion. Same thing with Florges. If I can burn it and then just hex it down, especially with hazards up, it's really not going to appreciate that. And if it's boots, it's not getting leftovers recovery. It means it's always forcing a wish tech, and I think I can take advantage of that pretty well. Then other than that, every Scarf Samurott does really well offensively in this game, in my opinion. We have Ceaseless Edge, Air Slash, Razor Shell, and Ice Beam. We're a mixed set, so we are faster than Dragonite, so we can revenge it with an Ice Beam potentially. Again, not Terra. And Air Slash is for the, Terra Bull. Other than that, Aqua Cutter or Razor Shell is really strong here. The only other water resist is something like Meowscarada. Ceaseless Edge is obviously very strong. We can revenge things like, non-booster Moth or Scarf Moth, obviously. Revenge that pretty easy. Just a very strong mod overall, and again, I don't really see the positions where he ever gets off a Rapid Spin with his Fortress, so once spikes are up, they're up, which is obviously really nice. Then I have a Boots Arcanine making its debut. We're Terra Normal this week. We're Head Smash, Flare Blitz, Wild Charge, and Extreme Speed. We're just like max offensive. Wild Charge catches things like Tauros if we need to. Other than that, our Dual Stats plus E-Speed is very strong. E-Speed is a very valuable tool in a matchup where I play things like Meowscarada and the Iron Moth. I can pick them off with the Terra Normal E-Speed if worse comes to worse. Dragonite also, I can potentially pick it off with an E-Speed as well. It also takes away my ground weakness, which means I can probably live a hit from the Dragonite, which is also very, very valuable in my opinion. Then I have Lilligant. This is going to be the mon I probably want to tear the most. It looks like I messed up the EVs again on accident. Oopsie. Whenever you do like suggested spread, he has something else at 105. And if you do suggested spread with Terra Blast, it makes you mix. You're not supposed to be. But regardless, we are Terra Rock this week. Rocking out with Leaf Blade, Close Combat, Terra Blast, and Victory Dance. I mean, this thing cooks. Look at his team. Leaf Blade plus Terra Blast and Close Combat absolutely rips through this squad. We just gotta chip down things and we'll be in a good spot. His only Intim pivot too is gonna be something like Bull, which we blow up anyways, and we can set up Victory Dances on, so that's obviously nice. Then we have Fizdef Bronzong. This is our main check to a physical Dragon Dance Dragonite. We have Ice Spinner to hit it, then Psychic, Stealth Rock, Body Press to hit really everything else that we possibly could want to hit. So that obviously looks really, really solid. And then I have another Fizdef Sylveon. Again, fairy resist are kind of limited. It's only the Iron Moth and the Fortress. Fortress is ass, and Iron Moth is something I think I can take care of with the rest of the squad potentially. Something I don't switch into great to be honest, but I have a lot of offensive pressure for it. And it's Rocky Helmet because it's going to be my main pivot into the Meowscarada. And if it's going to knock me off anyways, I'd rather do just that little tick of damage. And if it wants a U-turn or anything else, I can punish that. So, that's obviously pretty solid. But yeah. That being said, that's the team. Let's go ahead and start it off. In this game, I did decide to lead off with my Dragapult. It led well into really everything not named Meowscarada, and I had a pretty comfortable pivot into that with a full health Sylveon. Everything else, my Pulp led into well, besides I guess a Florges as well is not good, but I don't think that's going to lead, to be completely honest. So we do lead it off. We get a Fortress lead, which doesn't want to stay and take a Flamethrower or Shadow Ball or anything like that. The pretty obvious switch into Florges happens. I can Will-O-Wisp regardless, though, because it's a very safe play. Unless he goes hard Iron Moth, which I think is a pretty aggressive play, we're going to be in a pretty okay spot here. So we do go ahead and get off of, the Will-O-Wisp, and now next time if we catch a thing coming in on a Hex, we're going to be in a really good spot. And that's really what the main thing this is for. He does Baton Pass here out on my Bronzong switch-in. I am forced on my Sylveon. I do get my Rocky Helmet knocked off. We get a little bit of, chip down on the Meowscarada, which is obviously very, very nice. This next turn, I believe I do just throw up a Wish myself. Fortress is going to be the pivot out. I go hard Arcanine just to kind of exert some offensive pressure. Go for a pretty aggressive Wild Charge as well. I don't think he's going to stay in Earthquake because the fact that I can Terra Normal, so it wouldn't do anything. And he'd basically just be sacking off his Spiker / potential Rapid Spin mod. But yeah, I do just go for a Wild Charge. You see, doesn't do that much. It's a pretty bulky bull. There's about 35 with the Intin though, so that's unrecoverable, which is very nice for me, unless I let it get wished into. On top of that, I'm able to get in my Bronzong and force some Rocky Helmet on this, which is also very, very valuable in my opinion. On this next turn, he does go for another Raging Bull. I thought this was a bit aggressive on his end, because if I Psychic, I'm pretty sure my Arcanine just kills everything. Like, he doesn't have an answer for it anymore. So I figured he would pivot out, and I can get out my rocks, as he went, like, either Fortress, or even an aggressive Iron Moth, or something like that, if he didn't think I was going to Psychic. He does elect a Raging Bull, so it works out for him. He does, Raging Bulls, I elect to get out my rocks. The next turn, I think, okay, I gotta be careful, and really, get after this thing. Or do I Body Press, expecting... Yeah, no, I Body Press expecting maybe a Meowscarada or just chipping this thing low in general to where it doesn't matter. As out comes the Fortress next. I do just Psychic this turn because in my head I'm like, okay, well, I beat this. If he's going to stay and give it to me, might as well. The next turn he does double into the Meowscarada as I went Pulp to try and block a spin. I might as well just take any hit that I needed to. I'm forced to pivot Arcanine, or I pivot Arcanine here on the U-turn as it does get out. The Bull comes out again, but this is fine. Anytime this thing attacks, it takes damage from Bronzong. And I know I'm kind of burning a pretty solid check to Dragonite by doing this, but I'm also opening up my offense. I get that chip right there. I want to keep Bronzong around as a sack for more Rocky Helmet damage on either something like Meowscarada or the Dragonite, which is nice. As I do pivot into Dragapult, as I'm immune to CC, and Raging Bull only does 22, so that's not that much. From here, I'm just going to go ahead and Hex, as it does take rocks, and that plus burn would be enough if it wasn't leftovers. Unfortunately, it is, so I'm not able to 2-hit KO here. I'm just going to U-turn, get immediately out into a strong breaker as a Moonblast comes out, and I am once again just going to click a button. I have no reason not to, right? I just click Head Smash because Head Smash into E-Speed will kill the Taurus Bull. Out comes the Meowscarada this next turn. I believe I do stack off the Bronzong, yeah. The Flower Trick does come out. Picks me off, but like I said, or it doesn't pick me off. I guess it 2-hit KOs me. But like I said, that's fine. Raw Dog did his job. And then I'm thinking, I'm like, man, can't I go Lilligant now and set up? Because I'm looking at this team and I'm like, wow, nothing really takes on Lilligant. This thing can't really threaten me immediately with an Oko, especially without Protean. So I go ahead and quiver or Victory Dance into this Fortress as I just get off another one, get up to +2 right here, and get Pin Missiled. I'm thinking this might have been loaded dice because this does hit me 4 times, but it could have not been. We just close combat, knock out the Fortress. We're at +2/+2. Dragonite comes out, but the thing is, the reason I got up to +2/+2 wasn't to BM or anything like that. It was because, one, at +1 defense, and when I Terra Rock, I definitely don't die to an offensive E-Speed here. But 2, I knock him out through Multiscale if I hit. So I'm going to Terra Rock, Terra Blast, and knock out Dragonite from full through Multiscale, which is crazy. From here, it's just about hitting our moves. Out comes the Charty Iron Moth, which isn't going to live still because I am Hisuian Lilligant. Then out comes the Blue Bull. You can just go ahead and Leaf Blade, and from there, we're in a pretty good spot. I believe we just win. We just close combat one more time. Yep, down goes the Meowscarada, so we're able to take home a 5-0 week 2 on the back of Lilligant, once again sweeping and cleaning up. This is more of a sweep than a cleanup like last game, but I think you're all recognizing the power behind Hisuian Lilligant. This mod is insanely good, especially with Terra. I loved using it, so yeah, that being said, we can go ahead and jump on into week 3. Alright, next up we're playing Blaziken Blitz, or Blaze, someone I've played with for a long time. I think he was in, my second league ever, and I used to play with him a ton way back in the day. I know he's still playing, but we just aren't in the same circles anymore, like play-wise, so it was really cool to be able to play him again. It's been a long, long time coming. He has a really crazy offensive core right here that we're going up against. We're going up against Gengar, Terra Hisuian Avalugg, Iron Jugulis, Zamazenta Crown, it's not Hero, the Klefki, and Palafin. Man, when I tell you this matchup was brutal, this matchup was brutal. We can look at all of the offense, or all of the threats, right? The Gengar, I don't have answers to. I really don't have answers to. Both of my normals aren't bulky, and Samurott isn't the bulkiest thing in the world either. I have ways to pressure offensively, but that's about it. Iron Jugulis, same thing. I had a Sylveon, but Sylveon seemed really bad in the matchup into Zama, Palafin, and Gengar, so I didn't end up bringing it. So Jugu does really well against the team that I brought in particular. Zamazenta just wins. It just does. It just needs a little bit of chip on some stuff, and it's going to be in a good spot to do so. Klefki is always annoying. The screens are, in particular, kind of a problem alongside that Jugulis, as well as Palafin. I have 0 Palafin counterplay on my draft. I just do. I have 0 Palafin counterplay. Once things like Pull Turn, Range of Jet Punch, the game's over. It's just about that simple. It is just about that simple. So let's go ahead and check out the team that we were rocking with in this game. We have a Choice Specs Pulse again. I think it does really well here. The combination, I mean, Shadow Ball is pretty much unresisted against his team, besides the Jugulis, and we can get that with a Draco or a Thunderbolt. We're in a good spot. We also have an AV Hammerot. We can live like a Gengar hit, like Shadow Ball into a Gengar hit. We don't live Sludge Bomb into a Gengar hit, but we also threaten him with a potential of a Sucker Punch, so I don't really think that we'll ever be in that spot, and spikes are going to be really, really important in this. Sacred Sword is also nice to kind of deter Zamazenta to set up. If it wants to try and set up in my face, it's not going to work, which is obviously great. Then I have a Terra Normal, Arcanine and Hisuian. We're just dual steps, double edge, E-Speed. Pretty simple stuff. It's a good revenger to things like, you know, a potential Palafin, or even, like, if it gets weakened, things like Jugu. And also the Terra Normal is nice to have a Ghost immunity in this matchup into, like, a Scarf Gengar or something like that. And we're not bringing Lilligant, so this is going to be the one that Terra's here. Then we have Torkoal. We're Heat Rock with Lava Plume, Solar Beam, Rest, and Sleep Talk. One of my saving graces, I think Sun is really good here. This is pretty physically defensive. It checks things like Zamazenta very, very well. And then we also have Scovillain. We're rocking out with Flamethrower, Overheat, Giga Drain, and Growth. Through Heavy Duty boots in this game. I don't really need the Life Orb boost. This Pokemon just kills things on its own, and especially with a Growth Up, if we can position that. Man, oh man, is this Pokemon really, really strong here. Then lastly, I have a Fish Death Mudsdale. Again, checks things like the Zamazenta, and also like can chip down things like Palafin if they go for, you know, physical attacks, which is decently nice. If it's not banned, it's not going to 2-hit KO me. So yeah, obviously that's really, really solid. But yeah, that being said, let's go ahead and jump on into the matchup. Now, I am going to elect to lead off with my Samurott. I wanted to punish a potential Gengar lead because I didn't switch well into it, as well as I wanted to get up immediate spikes if he decided to lead off with Palafin to get into its hero form. I wanted to take advantage of that. I lived a close combat, pre-big fella form, so I could be in a good spot. Unfortunately, the Avalugg leads, and you think, oh, this is fine, Owen, just Sacred Sword, you'll be good. No, it's Terra Fairy, which is really solid in this game, honestly, so I am forced out. I know that he's probably going to Terra here, as he does elect to Terra here. I think the Jugulis is also Terra. And like Terra Steel is one of the typing, but this thing tearing makes sense when there's no Sylveon on the field, right? Jugu doesn't really need to change typings. Torkoal is able to take this on. If you get a Lava Plume off into Gengar, it shows to be leftovers. I get disabled, but I'm forced out anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Out comes Samurott right here, and I know I can take any one hit. Sludge Bomb comes out, and man, is that shit strong. That shit is incredibly, incredibly strong. So, this turn, click C-Sludge. I don't have Sucker Punch, but in my head, there's no way he doesn't scout for it. I feel like going into the Avalugg is pretty free to potentially try and get off a spin or something of the sorts, but I can always spin block it and at least play that mind game. I don't think he'll even spin there because of my pull potentially coming in. And after the Ceaseless Edge, he's in range of a Specs Shadow Ball. So, in my head, I think that Sucker is always a big threat here, and there's no reason to risk your Gengar if you even have, like, if you have, like, Sub or something too, you go for that here instead. He doesn't. The Blaze is built different. He just goes for an energy ball, and I get blown up. So, that's pretty unfortunate. He does just call me on my shit, apparently. I get out into my Scovillain, and I am able to pick a KO here. There's nothing that he can do to stop Scovillain from killing something right now. So, I just click Flamethrower, which is very nice. Next out comes Klefki, and I'm like, uh-oh, that's not good. Is he gonna Thunder Wave me? Is he gonna Light Screen? This is something I use to break this. Regardless, I don't really have anything that really wants to switch in on it. I could go into Torkoal, but I elected to stay in an Overheat as he Rain Dances and I miss. And you're going to see over the course of the game, these misses are going to start racking up. So Rain Dance was a smart bring. It stops my Sun, and it makes his Palafin very strong, as he does elect to go for a Thunder Wave this upcoming turn, right? And pair my Torkoal. Rain Dance happens as I do throw off a Lava Plume, do absolutely nothing in the rain because Torkoal's piss weak. And then out comes Jugulis, which I believe I get paired on. I don't remember when I clicked, to be honest. But yeah, me getting mad in the chat, obviously. I go into Mudsdale. I don't have a switch into this thing. I actually just elect to kind of sack off my Mudsdale. I realize now that I'm going to have to play a very offensive game. I'm not going to win the game, trying to have defensive checks for everything. So I sack this off. I go immediately out into Arcanine. I am going to Terra Normal and just throw off a very strong Head Smash. It does 34 to this Avalugg, decent amount here. It does show to be boots. I get out into my Pult here as a recover happens, which is unfortunate because the Shadow Ball is going to bring it down very low, 76%. There's a crazy amount of damage, but Mountain Gale is going to knock me out. I think I calced Terra Blast, potentially, like living Terra Blast. I was like, oh, I'm good, but I forgot that it has its own custom move. Mountain Gale just blew me up. I'm able to go to my Arcanine here and Double Edge to pick this thing off, but out comes the Zamazenta, which is pretty darn bad. I'm going to pivot out into my Torkoal in order to try and do some damage, maybe get off a rest, as this Body Press just does too much, and we're not going to be able to get this rest off ever. So unless I rested that other turn where I got paired, which I don't remember if I did, I was done there. Out comes the Iron Jugulis. I think I get pretty aggressive here, and I growth. Yep, I growth, expecting him to make some kind of sack, and not sack off the Zama. Do Flamethrower here, knock it out. The crit did not matter from that range. Out comes the Klefki, and I know that I can still blow this thing up with a Flamethrower, and despite the rain being up, I now know that I still blow up the Zamazenta. Like, I still do I'm still very strong into that Pokemon. Next up, Palafin is going to come out, and I know what your play is. I know exactly what you're doing, and I am not going to let it happen. I am going to go for an Overheat into the Zamazenta Crown and knock it out. I unfortunately miss another Overheat, as you're going to see. Body Press is going to come out. I Overheat. I don't take him out necessarily, which is a bit unfortunate. And then another Body Press is going to come out, knock me out. And from here, the game is unfortunately lost. There's not really much I can do to beat this Palafin right here. Out comes the E-Speed, picks off this, and this is going to be a 1-0 loss. Now, if that Overheat hit, I think my play would potentially go hard Arcanine on the Zama, pick it off with an E-Speed, and then force him into a lock position with the Palafin. Unless it was Wave Crash and it was banded, I think I was fine. I think E-Speed and a Wave Crash recoil might have killed him. I don't know. I really don't know if I would have won that game, to be honest, now that I'm looking back on it. I know I was super tilted at the time, but I don't know if I would have won. It turns out that he's Drain Punch, I don't know if I for sure won or not. I know I was super tilted at the time, but I know the misses played a pretty big role, and I think the Gengar play was also really big. Not getting up any spikes this game made this game impossible. So I was pretty surprised that he was willing to sack off the Gengar, but I guess he prevented spikes, and that might have been the whole end goal, because spinning was pretty hard this game. But yeah, that's going to be week 3. We drop our first game here. Only a 1-0 though, so I think we can bounce back, and I'll be back with week 4. Alright, week 4 comes along. We need a big bounce back week. We're going up against Nate this game. Nate has a pretty interesting team that is an Altaria that could tear. I forget what types, to be honest, at this point. A Lando T, Sableye, Zor, Glamora, and Orthworm. So, honestly, I'm feeling pretty good about this matchup. There's a couple annoying threats. Something like Corrosion Glamora could be pretty obnoxious. Landers can always get out of hand, like an SD Crunch set. Definitely was a little bit worrying, but definitely not the end of the world. And then there's a lot of potential hazards, but a lot of my mons are wearing boots, so they don't super care. Speaking of which, we can talk about our mons. We have Choice Specs Dragapult. I mean, if you look at the team that they brought, their Ghost Resist was going to be Zoroark. So Shadow Ball's pretty free. There's no Fairy on the other side as well, and the Seal is Orthworm. So Draco's also very free. We then have a Lumberry Samurott Hisui with Ceaseless Edge, Razor Shell, Aqua Jet, and Sucker Punch. Just gets up hazards, is pretty annoying, pretty strong in this game too. I like the priority option for something like Landers if we do need to do so. We then have a Clear Amulet, Hisuan and Lilligant. We are just Terra Rock again this week. Leaf Blade, Terra Blast, Close Combat, and Victory Dance. Max. This thing really does win the game. We just need to get a little chip on Landers. With our Clear Amulet, we won't be hit by its Intimidate. Now we are risking a lot by going Hustle with no Wide Lens, but we'll hit our moves. We're fine. I'm gonna Fizz Def Bronzong. This is here mostly to check the Landers. I got Rock Tomb to keep it slow, nice and slow actually, which is always really nice. As well as most of this team, Rock Tomb is also really nice for like a potential Terra, Dragon Dance, Altaria. I'll always keep it at neutral speed, which is nice so I can revenge it afterwards. Other than that, we just have Iron Head, Body Press, and then Stealth Rock just to get them up. We also have our Arcanine and Hisui, which is also going to be normal, Terra Normal this week, with just same set we've kind of been bringing all season so far. Flare Blitz, Exchange Speed, Head Smash, and Double Edge. Does really, really well here, is very strong, and if there's a worst case scenario, again, where I need to get off that Terra Normal and E-Speed to pick something off, we'll do it. Our Terra target is most likely going to be Lilligant this game, but we do have the options. And then I have Heavy Duty Boot Sylveon. Pretty simple stuff. We're just Wish, Protect, Hyper Voice, Baton Pass. To go. Some momentum. Alrighty, that being said, let's jump into it. I do like to lead off with my Dragapult because it's very strong offensively into this team. And if something's led in correctly, we're going to put ourselves in a good spot. I do elect a Shadow Ball turn 1 as a Dazzling Gleam is going to come off from this Glamora. In hindsight, as I was just rewatching this game, this play was kind of bad, considering this totally could have been a Zoroark lead, and I just would have been completely thrown off guard. I think a more neutral lead might have been something like a Samurott Hisui, because I was able to get up spikes, and then I kind of be able to tell what was what, and, go from there. And early spikes were also really, really good. So I think I probably should have led Samurott, but I don't get punished, and it shows to be a Scarf Glamora, which is going to do a lot of damage to me as I don't kill with the Spec Shadow Ball. Didn't want to risk a Hydro Pump, and Shadow Ball hits everything. So I do make the pivot out into my Arcanine right here. I can eat up this Dazzling Gleam pretty darn easily, and there's not great switch-ins to this thing. Landorus is going to be the switch-in right here, as I do Head Smash and unfortunately miss, as you do. And get out into our Bronzong, and we're seeing Nasty Plot. And in my head, I'm like, oh no, is this thing Dark Pulse? But it doesn't have it. It doesn't really have a move to hit me. And this is pre-DLC, so no gravity. But we do see a Smackdown from the Landorus right here, as I believe I elect to Rock Tomb just to slow it down a little bit. Now, this is a bit unfortunate because I don't have double ground immunity. And I don't know if it was in this video or a video prior or anything else that I was talking about, where Smackdown or gravity, or Smackdown isn't good if your opponent has a multiple. Mons off the ground. But I don't right here. So I don't have a great pivot into this +2 ground move. Now, thankfully, I am maxed per def on this Sylveon. So I can take 2 of those technically. I am going to pivot back out into Bronzong as we actually see a U-turn, so more helmet chip, which is always a good thing. Out comes Orthworm as it elects to get up its own rocks. I go hard Samurott just because I want to force spikes up right here. Chip down things like Gamora, chip down things like Sableye, things like that. The Landers is already pretty chipped. As I do get up 2, just sacking this thing off to the Orthworm. Not super worried about keeping my Samurott around. It wasn't very needed in my opinion. Now I go back out into Bronzong. I'm just going to like to get up my Stealth Rock right here. No reason not to. As out comes the Altaria. It's going to actually reveal Defog right here, so he's willing to defog away his own hazards in order to keep mine away. Unfortunate, but not the end of the world. I rocked him just in case this was a Dragon Dance variant. I didn't know at this point. But we see the Perish Song next, which is going to show me this is definitely got fat. Yeah. Kill your Mon kind of set. As the Roost does come out here this next turn, as I do get up my rocks and the speed drop is up, so this is a pretty free attack here. Sableye is going to come out as they do Head Smash to 71%, and I can just 2-hit KO this thing. Nothing else on my team really wants to take a Thunder Wave. I guess I could go Sylveon, but I think Sylveon is still very good here. So why sack it off, right? Next, out comes Glimmora. We're going to go hard in a Bronzong on an Earth Power. Thankfully, they won't be able to hit us due to our Levitate ability. Out comes the Altaria once again as I double into Sylveon. From here, I do try and just wish up just to stay healthy so I can take on things like Zoroark and Landorus all that better. I do like to aggressively defog, which is fine because there's not great switch-ins after this. Orthworm takes a lot. Glimmora dies from here as we actually see a hard Altaria, which is just going to get, or a hard Zoroark. He even fooled me even though it's just in with Altaria, which is going to absolutely blow it up, obviously. Now, this next turn, Orthworm is going to come in. It's going to show to be dual hazards. It's going to get up 2 spikes, so I'm very surprised at the hazard stack approach with Defog Altaria, but not too big of a deal. This is going to allow me to get my Lilligant for free with this slow baton pass. I'm going to get that wish up so we don't even take any damage from the spikes. And from here, it's Victory Dance time, baby. We do see the Landers pivot in as they do Victory Dance. What? And you'll see. That's all I need to knock this thing out. Lilligant is really, really strong. The Clarion Amulet coming up really, really clutch right here. Just Leaf Blade on the Glimmora once again. I am faster than the Scarf at Creep. I'm obviously faster than the Glimmora. And then out comes Altaria. This is when we finally, guarantee pop our Terra. Just knock it out with a Terra Blast. And last is Orthworm, so even if we miss, we should be okay with both Pult and Arcanine and Bronzong in the back. We're just going to close combat one more time, though. We do hit, thankfully, and we're able to get some diff back, winning 5-0, which is a really, really nice bounce back week, considering that the week prior, we lost our first game, and that's never ideal, so... Yeah, definitely good stuff here. Was happy to get back on the board, and I'll be right back with week 5. Alright, now we got a game up against Cash here. If I'm remembering correctly, I'm pretty sure Cash actually joined post-draft and kind of picked up with the scraps on the board, which is pretty crazy considering he has some big threats on his team, like the Slitherwing, Muckalola, Garganacl, Komala, Landorus Eye, which can be Sheer Force, and the Gardevoir. Let's go ahead and take a look at the squad we're rocking with this week. Oops, looks like I'm in the middle for some reason. We have a Choice Scarf, Samurott. If you looked at his team, he doesn't really have great resist to water that he brought. There's actually no Aqua Gutter resist on his squad. Its Edge is still very strong, can set up spikes, revenge things like a Scarf Gardevoir as well, which is really nice, as well as things like a Scarf Slitherwing. So I thought that was nice. That's what the Tech Aerial Ace is also for. And then we have Sacred Sword to break through Garganacl to start setting up Iron defenses and things like that. We also have a Heavy Duty Boots Dragapult, where Draco Meteor, U-Turn, Hydro Pump, and Shadow Ball. Hydro Pump is basically for the Garganacl. Other than that, we're kind of just here to U-turn around forever. It's a bit of a tough Pult matchup, but I liked it because of its speed tier and its ability to soft check things like the Slitherwing, which are really tough against my team otherwise. So at the very least, it'll force very specific switch-ins. I'll be able to get U-turns and position myself well because of so. Next up, we have a set I'm actually really happy with, and I was really, glad I ended up bringing this set in particular. We have a Hisuian Lilligant, but we're not Victory Dance. We're just Life Orb Hustle this week with Close Combat, Aerial Ace, Leaf Blade, and Protect. We are Terra Fighting. I mean, look at the switch-in. It doesn't exist on this team. I mean, I don't know the calc against Gardevoir, but I'm pretty sure we blow it up with a Close Combat. And obviously, Leaf Blade blows it up as well. Aerial Ace is literally just for that, so then we have Protect for First Impression, to be able to scout that out. And this thing's just a crazy breaker, and outspeeds everything on the opposing team minus Scarfers. So, I mean, if there's not a very specific Scarfer, this can just win on its own. Then we have Arcanine and Hisuian. Choice Band this week. We're going really offensive here. Head Smash, Extreme Speed, Flare Blitz, and Wild Charge. We are Terra Rock this week because if we do need to Terra Rock, we can actually just blow everything up. There's not a Rock resist on the opposing side either, so the lack of resistances are really shining through. Terra Rock Head Smash just kills everything on the opposing side, so I think that's pretty cool. Then we have Sylveon. This is more simple. We are a Max Speed F set. We are Wish, Protect, Hyper Voice, and Yawn. Nice and simple. It checks all the special offense on the other side, namely the Landers and the Gardevoir. Spread Yawns, put things to sleep, get into Arcanine, Hisuian Lilligant, and, things like that. And again, hopefully set up for that Samurott endgame. Then we have a Fizz Def Mudsdale. It's just here to get up rocks. It roars things around if they want to set up. Things like the Muck if they're like a Cursor Acid Armor set. Things like the Garganacl if they're a Cursor Acid Armor set. Same thing with Slitherwing. If it is a bulk up Slitherwing that wants to try and beat us 1v1, we can roar it out so it doesn't do so. But, that being said, let's jump into the battle. Bam! Right there, as you can see. We're going to go ahead and start the game off. We do lead off with our Lilligant Hisuian. I wanted to try and hopefully put my opponent on the back foot immediately. If we saw like a Stealth Rock Garganacl lead, or even a Muckalola lead, we Oko that thing from full. So just in case he wanted to lead advantageously into like a Pult lead, which I've been doing all this season, it would have put me in a good spot. Unfortunately, we do lead to Gardevoir. I'm recording in the morning for this game, by the way. I've been breaking them up, and I'm still yawning. I've been up for like 3 hours. I've drinking my coffee and everything. It's just something that happens when I record. But what I'm going to do here is I am going to protect. It does always let me scout in front of this Gardevoir. I don't know if this thing's Scarf yet, and I don't want to risk it. I can like blow this thing up with a Leaf Blade if it's like an offensive scent, but I don't want to risk it. Next, we're going to go into our Sylveon as the Landorus doubles in, and honestly, that's fine with me. This is still one of the things I was mainly here to check this. I live Sludge Bomb pretty well. U-turn does pop, as I do just throw off a big yawn. Make this thing nice and tired as I go out into Mudsdale, just to get on my rocks. If this thing wants to stay in, it can. Garganacl is going to be the switch in afterwards, though, as we do see a Stealth Rock go up into a Salt Cure. Now, we are not rocking with the Covert Cloak, so we are going to take a little bit of damage. Fortunately, we don't want to pivot out into my Samurott. Now, this turn, he can go ahead and, you know, Salt Cure me or Body Press me, especially, and do a lot of damage, but I'm pretty reserved with getting off a big Aqua Cutter, just to do a ton of damage to that thing, or do a ton of damage to anything on the switch in, which Gardevoir ends up being the pivot in right here. So we do see it take Rock, so it's not Boots, and traces me, but it gets immediately crit by Aqua Cutter and killed. Now, depending on the spread, that did matter. I'm pretty sure it like actually always mattered, but we were Scarf, so we 2-hit KO'd anyway, so I'm not super worried. Out comes Slitherwing. It is just going to U-turn immediately, do a nice 33 to me, but I'm able to get off a little bit of chip. It sucks, but I can wish this thing up, depending on how things go. Sylveon is going to pivot out on this Landorus. Once again, not taking Stealth Rock damage because of the boots, eating up an Earth Power for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, as I am just going to wish up, and this is that opportunity like I was just talking about. I'm getting back into Mudsdale. Another Salt Cure can come out, but that's fine. I get back up to full, which is really all that matters, minus the Salt Cure damage, obviously, but, or at least back up pretty healthy to where things like Slitherwing won't 2-hit KO me, or, you know, with a U-turn or whatever it may be, or at least I can force 2 more turns of, Helmet on it, which is nice. I'm going to go out into my Lilligant. I'm going to Terra Fighting and just CC, and we hit, so this thing's dead immediately. I'm completely dead from full. There's not much that wants to switch in on this. Out comes Landorus. This has me thinking this has to be Scarf, because it just like dies from here, especially if I'm Ice Spinner as well. He doesn't really know my moveset. So he does go for the Earth Power. Again, really screaming Scarf right here. I make the pivot out into Mudsdale just to kind of sack it off. Depending on rolls and things like that, Sylveon could have been 2-hit KO'd, or it could have been crit and then 2-hit KO'd, not used at all. So I figured getting out into that was just a little bit more valuable in my opinion, because I really think my Sylveon is very valuable in this game. I am going to protect here as another Earth Power comes out, just to be extra safe, as a Komala is going to pivot in on my next Wish, I believe. Yep. We're just trying to stay nice and healthy. We can pass out into all of our offense. For example, this Arcanine. And the player off comes out, probably expecting maybe a Pult to come in, but we do Wish it right back up. And this is a Choice Spin Head Smash. Nothing switching in. Darganacl, 2-hit KO. Even after this upcoming Protect, this will be a 2-hit KO. I believe he needed to get like a triple Protect for me to not, you know, nuke him. He probably shouldn't have gone for Protect there. He should have like banked on a miss probably and just like recovered, but that's all good. We knock it out, which is obviously really nice. Now, I do want to keep this in the back for E-Speed priority, so I make the pivot right back out into Sylveon. Don't think a Sludge Bomb's coming out, as I do take it out pretty well. Oh, excuse me. I'll take it off a Wish here into a Protect, as I am kind of forced into a Protect, or I will die to this upcoming Earth Power. So Kamala's going to come out, but I'm not super worried about it. I am going to go ahead and Protect on an attempted Rapid Spin. I don't want the Rapid Spin to come out, and honestly, I'm pretty okay with him making this player off call, because that means rocks stay up, and again, I'm slowly chipping things in ready to Choice Band E-Speed from the Arcanine, which is a very viable win con. As long as I have Arcanine plus Sylveon, I should actually be able to win this game pretty darn freely. So Sucker Punch is going to come out. It's not going to knock out my Pulp. I get off a Draco for 37. I think this thing is probably AV the way he's playing it. And I'm going to pivot back on Arcanine. I have a feeling he's going to Sucker Punch here. And he's definitely not like Earthquaking or something random like that. And I can keep my Pulse as a sack, as well as get into my Arcanine just to pick a KO right here. There's not much he can really do about it. So I figured it was just a little bit more optimal to do so. I do just click Head Smash. I think I should have clicked Flare Blitz, by the way. Head Smash can miss and Flare Blitz can't, so that was a bit of a bad play, to be completely honest, but not the biggest deal in the world. I go into my Dragapult. I just sack it off. Nice and simple. And then out comes my Sylveon. I think I throw a Wish in the air. Do I? Probably should have just Hyper Voice another thing too, because I have to protect here and scout for Heavy Slam, because Heavy Slam would blow me up. Earthquake is going to come out though, so it doesn't look like it really does too much to me. And then from here, I'm going to go pivot into Samurott, just to hopefully try and take this thing on decently well. Earthquake does 70%, but I'm able to outspeed, hit an Aerial Ace that never misses because I'm Scarf, and knock it out. Then out comes Landers, confirming Scarf. It goes for an Earth Power, knocks me out. I got into Sylveon. I should just Hyper Voice here. I think I wish for some reason. I don't know, guys. I'll be honest. I really don't know. So I go ahead and just click a Hyper Voice, though, and I knock it out. So pretty good positioning. I was happy with Lilligant going crazy. Arcanine did really well. It was really just kind of Sylveon, though, sitting here the whole game, passing wishes out to offense, and then getting a KO. Come back in, passing wish out to offense, getting a KO until we end up winning the game. So yeah, GG to Cash. Let's jump on to the next one. Alright, week number 6, I believe it is. We're going up against my good buddy, Chris CV Hulk. He's the guy who runs the league, obviously. And he's got a really scary squad here. He's got the Iron Valiant, which is really well into our team. The Electro Hisuian. Lucario, which I believe can Terra. I forget which Terra typings it is. I think it's Normal and Steel. Normal and Fighting? One of the two. Overcrow, Donphan, and the Houndstone that cannot use Last Respects. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at the squad we're bringing. We got Choice Specs pulled. I mean, it's pretty simple. Outside of the Overcool, which doesn't have reliable recovery, he does not have a Ghost Resist on the squad, and Overcool gets blown up by a Draco Meteor, and his Fairy doesn't want to switch in on a Draco because it's Iron Valiant, and it dies to Shadow Ball with its really poor spread depth. So I figured that a Specs variant was really, really strong here. It's also an E-Speed immunity, which is very valuable when you play Terra Normal Lucario. Then we have a Hyper Voicing, just mixed defenses Sylveon. Solid catch-all check to a lot of his team, things like Valiant, things like the Electrode Hisuian, which is Terra as well. I believe it's Terra Ice. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. So great check to that thing, obviously, and we can Wish, Baton Pouch, getting out, and other things. Then we have a Heavy Duty Boots Arcanine, Terra Normal again, Flare Blitz, Head Smash, Extreme Speed, and Double Edge. Pretty simple offensive set. There's lots of hazards on the other side, though, and I don't really have means of removal, so we're not going to really be able to get them away, so we keep our Heavy Duty Boots on. Then we have a Leftovers Bronzong, Gyro Ball, Stealth Rock, Psychic, and Earthquake, just a Phys Dev set. Again, checks Valiant very well. At least any physical Valiant, and then Sylveon checks most special Valiants really, really well, so yeah, we're able to cover both sides. Then we have an AV Samurott Hisuian with Ceaseless Edge, Aqua Jet, Sucker Punch, and Aqua Cutter. Now, out of the 6 he brought, it doesn't have a ton of use. I totally forget exactly what was on the bench that I kind of brought it for. But the good news is we can totally live a hit from the Electro Hisuian unless it's like a Specs variant. We should be able to live any hit from it and, you know, get off a really, really strong Ceaseless Edge, which is really, really clutch. Ceaseless Edge and Sucker Punch should always kill most of them as well. We have a great win condition in this game in Wide Lens, Lilligant, Hisuian. We are Terra fighting with Leaf Blade, Victory Dance, Close Combat, and Ice Spinner. Nice and simple, but does really, really well. Alright, that being said, let's jump right into it. We do have an Overcrow lead into our Arcanine Hisuian. Now, despite being intimidated this turn, I thought it was very, very valuable to get off a Head Smash because the more damage I get off on this thing, the closer I am to just winning with Spec Shadow Ball. There's not really much that stops it other than a booster or a Scarf Valiant, so... or being put in range of Shadow Sneak from Houndstone. So I figured it was pretty valuable just to throw off the attack if you wanted to stay in. He does make the smart switch though, and going into Donphan, kind of recognizing why I like to take Chip when I have a great switch in Donphan. I'm gonna make the hard Samurott play. Like I said, there's not much that Samurott like objectively beats on this team, especially with the AV outside of something like a Donphan and potentially a Houndstone with no Wisp. But so I decide that it's pretty useful to get into it and get up a Ceaseless Edge spike right away to slowly chip down these things. I can somewhat block spins and things like that as well. Pin Missile is going to come out from the Overcoil trying to kill my Samurott staying in, but I got no reason to, as I'm going to make a pretty aggressive double here into Lilligant on the Donphan, which is a great double. I like this double, but I don't like my next play. Next play, I go for a Terra Fighting, which I don't think I need to do yet, and a Close Combat, when there's obviously a Houndstone in the back that very specifically came for this. If anything, maybe I double out into my Samurott again, or I throw off a Leaf Blade to try and chip this thing down a little bit, as I do go into Arcanine, just trying to anticipate a Will-O-Wisp. I don't want to get Wisp on my Samurott because it's still really good offensively, but we do just see a Nightshade right here, which is completely fine, as I do make the double out of Samurott this turn, because I don't expect a Wisp if he stays in, or I expect to switch out into Donphan, which we do see right here. Overcoil's going to come out, it's going to take another Spike, and it's going to take this Aqua Cutter, which I believe does 36, yeah, and that's a decent amount of damage, as I get off another one right here, bring it down to 3% as the Spike goes up, and then last turn, I can just off another Ceaseless Edge, get up another Spike. So, Samurott was able to trade for this Overcoil, which is great for my Dragapult. Out comes Sylveon, as it is going to Volt Switch. The Electro is going to Volt Switch bring out the Lucario, but again, 2 spikes is obviously nice. There's no sash involved. We go into Arcanine just to sack it off. As a flash cannon comes out, showing that it's probably a special variant. We do see a Life Orb right here, but thanks to the fact that it's not like Swords Dance, Bullet Punch, I know for a fact I can go ahead and live at any hit with Dragon Bolt. I go in and Shadow Ball plays KO. There's literally nothing he can do about it. Now, Valiant's going to come out next. It does show the booster energy, so as long as I force this thing out, the next time Bolt comes in, it damn near wins, right? Outside, I guess, the Electrode, too, does outspeed me. So, a knockoff's going to come out here. Good, solid neutral ground play. So, I get out into my Bronzong. I click Gyro Ball. Again, in hindsight, there wasn't really a point in clicking Gyro Ball. Psychic was super effective. It hit the Valiant. It hit this. It hit this. It hit this. So, I think that I for sure should have just Psychic there, but again, not too big of a deal, to be completely honest, as I do Psychic there, do a nice little 34, even get a Spadef drop, look at me, and then the last turn, I am just going to throw off one more Psychic, pick this thing off. Next up comes Electrode Hisuian. I am just going to kind of let this die, try and get on my rocks. As an Electric Terrain comes out, and this is a really cool bring from Chris, because what this does is, despite the booster energy being gone, when the Roar Zoro, the Iron Valiant, comes back in, it is going to get that Cork Drive speed boost, and it will outspeed my Pulse, so I cannot revenge it that way, which makes it a little bit scary. So I am going to go into my Sylveon afterwards because I know it takes on this thing, and I know it takes on the Valiant from the health that it's at, so I know that I can at least stall out Electric Terrain turns and kind of deal with it accordingly. I do throw off a Wish as the Houndstone comes in, and then I just Hyper Voice because I know there's nothing this thing can do to really threaten me. Out comes the Lilligant Hisuian, which is the last thing I really wanted in, but in all honesty, I'm fine with just sacking this thing off to get chip on the Houndstone, because what do I beat from here, right? I guess I can take on the Electrode Hisuian, but I don't need it to beat Electrode Hisuian. And chipping this thing down is really nice for the rest of my team. Things like Sylveon can just win as soon as this thing's gone, or at least put in Hyper Voice range. So I'm just going to spam Leaf Blade. I have no reason not to, as a bunch of Nightshades are going to keep coming out. If I get a crit, I knock out there, but I don't, unfortunately, as a Nightshade is going to pick me off here. But the Houndstone's at, what, 14%? I'm going to go into my Samurott here because I want to get up a Spike. If I force in the Iron Valiant, I can revenge it afterwards with Pult. But Chris makes a smart play, and he goes into Electrode Hisuian. Again, hindsight, I probably should just Ceaseless Edge here, right? Because if I do, I knock this thing out going for an Electric Terrain, and it is kind of forced into that this turn. And I can knock it out, forcing the Valiant, and then actually, I don't know if that's the play, because now I'm wasting more turns, which might be, better in the long run. I do get off a Sucker Punch. It doesn't kill the Trode from there, as it is pretty bulky, but even in terrain, you see that Thunderbolt is doing 24, because Sylveon's so Spadef bulky. I Wish and Hyper Voice, and again, in my head, I'm thinking, okay, I probably should have protected, Wished, and then Hyper Voice, because now from this range, I am in range of a crit from the Valiant. A crit Poison Jab does kill me from here. I know regular doesn't kill me, but crit does. Electric Terrain, I believe he was Terrain Extender as well, so if I got crit here, I did lose the game. But thankfully, never punished, as I do live. I am able to knock out the Valiant. We are able to take home a 2-0 victory. Really cool bring and team from Chris. I like the Hazard stack plus Electric Terrain into Valiant. I think that was a really smart bring on his end. I said it in the game, but it was really cool. Chris is someone I've played for, I played for so many years back in the day, and he's someone I don't think I ever beat because he was the GOAT back in the day. And he's still very good, obviously, just jumping back in the game and almost whooping my ass. He's a crit away from kicking my ass and, beating me. So this is a really cool one to get to play him again, though. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So let's jump into the next one. Alright, week 7, we were going up against Lime. Now, if I'm remembering correctly, I know we were the top 2 seeds in the league at this point. He either was hadn't lost yet, or had one loss just like us. And we're getting pretty close to playoffs, only 2 weeks after this until playoffs start. So we both didn't really want to reveal our hands, and we both, didn't meme, but brought, 15-minute teams. I know we built really fast this week. I definitely wanted to win, because I wanted first seed, and I wanted to have a bye going into playoffs. I wanted to remain top 2 no matter what. So, that would push me to an instant semifinals appearance. So I definitely wanted to win and built a real team. But it definitely wasn't like I sat down, labored for hours, and I know that he didn't either. You can see he has a terrifying team. That is Chien-Pao Sneasler, Terra Sandy Shocks with Terra Ice, which is really scary. Cyclizar, Moltres, and the Quillfish. So pretty scary squad that he's got right now. I can show you the team that we were rocking with this week. We had a really bulky Boots Pult. It's actually a great check, something like a Sneasler, where Shadow Ball, you turn Flamethrower, Draco. Pretty simple stuff. I also have a Choppleberry, Hisuian, Samurott. Good lure for the, Chien-Pao, but also really good offensively in general here. We have Aqua Cutter, Ceaseless Edge, Sacred Sword, and Aqua Jet. Pretty simple stuff. We're very strong, but you know, we can really take one from just about everything that's not named Sandy Shocks or Sneasler, and do a ton of damage back, or pick them off with Aqua Jets if they're weakened. Then we have a FizzDef, Rest Talk, Torkoal. We're not even rocking with, like, Sun this week, but the Sun does benefit the rest of our team. We are Rest Talk, FizzDef to take on the Chien-Pao. We take it on pretty well unless it's banded. Then we have a Protective Pads Lilligant. We are Terra Rock this week with Leaf Blade, Close Combat, Terra Blast, and Victory Dance Chlorophyll, just because we can be. And then we have a Choice Band Arcanine, really strong this week. Terra Normal, Head Smash, Flare Blitz, Extreme Speed, and Double Edge. And then lastly, you have a Spadef Sylveon. Once again, Boots, Baton Pass, Wish Protect, and Hyper Voice. This is going to be our main check to the Sandy Shocks. It doesn't block Volt Switches, which is really unfortunate. But I don't have anything else on my team that really takes on Terra Ice Sandy Shocks. So this is my switch in. Alright, let's jump into it. So, I believe I do lead off with Dragon Ball. I want to lead Anti into that Sneasler. I don't want to allow it to just grab for U-turns on me and things like that. I want to threaten it. So I lead off with my Pult. Unfortunately, we see a Cyclizar lead, which wouldn't be bad if it's just like standard Cyclizar versus Pult. But I don't know what this is yet. I don't know if it's Scarf, if it's Sash, if it's Haban, or whatever. So I make the hard pivot out into Sylveon as we do see a Draco. And at this point in the match, I was kind of tipped off. I was like, okay, maybe this is Scarf the way he's playing it, because he just went for a hard Draco immediately into my Pult. Out comes the Moltres. Next, I do just Baton Pass, knowing this thing isn't going to want to stay in. And Arcanine means a ton of damage on something. Nothing really wants to switch in. Even this FizzDef Quillfish at -1, it still takes 61%. I am going to pivot out because I don't want to take like a random Aqua Jet or something like that, as Liquidation does come out, and then I'm able to pick it off with a Shadow Ball from Pult. So Pult grab another KO here. Next up is Chien-Pao, but I do still have my check and my Torkoal at full health, so why not go into it right now? Crunch is pretty free. He elects a Sacred Sword, probably predicting the Samurott, but that's not my check here. It's going to be Torkoal. I make a nice, again, aggressive double out into the Arcanine, kind of expecting a potential Moltres coming in, but it also covered the Cyclizar to an extent. I get out into my Sylveon. I'm just going to switch into it because it's free to do so. Knockoff comes out this next turn, as I do just Baton Pass, trying to get out into a strong breaker. This next turn, I am going to Terra Rock and Victory Dance, as I believe a U-turn comes out. Also, we've confirmed that it's not Scarf. We find out later that it's actually Sash Cyclizar, which is actually pretty cool as a lead in a Pult, because either you kill me with Draco, or I U-turn and you get your Sash back with Regen. So, I thought those are a pretty smart set here. As I do Terra Rock and Victory Dance, and then I realize that Sneasler either outspeeds me with a Scarf, which it might be, meaning that we saw that Cyclizar wasn't Scarf, or it just like lives a hit for me because I'm not Aerial Ace or anything like that. So Close Combat is going to come out, and we do at least force the Close Combat, so that gives me good momentum. As a Draco is going to come out this next turn from me, doing about half to this Moltres, showing it's pretty bulky. I get a U-turn out of there, and I'm going to go into Arcanine. This thing does not have Scorching Sands anymore, so if it stayed in and roosted, I blow something up with a Head Smash. But he makes a pretty smart, aggressive play, going for a U-turn, recognizing, okay, I can't let this thing in right now. Sylveon's going to come out next, and unfortunately, that's a free Volt Switch. Sneasler's going to be the next out. I Protect, kind of assuming this thing is a Scarf set, as we do see a Dire Claw come out. I'm going to make the pivot out into my Torkoal because I can. And I'm not going to get status by the Dire Claw, which is obviously very, very nice. The next turn, I am going to just throw off a Rest. I want to keep this thing healthy for both the Chien-Pao and the Sneasler, if at all humanly possible. I'm going to get out an Arcanine on the Moltres this time. It does roost, so this does mean I get to kill something. Unfortunately, it's going to be this Moltres as it goes down. Now, this also really has me regretting choosing to Terra my Lilligant so early. If anything, I should have Victory Dance, and then if Moltres was to switch in, then I Terra Rock. But I shouldn't have Victory Danced, or Terra and then Victory Dance, at least yet. Now, out comes Sandy Shocks. I'm going to go out into my Lilligant Hisui, just basically sacking it off. It doesn't do very well here. So again, if I can have that Terra Normal E-Speed, I'd be in a really good spot in this endgame. It kind of just wins here soon, but it's not the biggest deal in the world. I get out into Sylveon, and I get off a really big Wish. I think the next turn, do I just throw off a Hyper Voice? Yep, I just throw off a Hyper Voice into the Sneasler. It only takes about half, though, which is unfortunate. I'm going to Protect, again, assuming this is Scarf, as a Dire Claw comes out, but it unfortunately isn't. I go out into Torkoal, and I believe I see another Dire Claw. Yep, there we go. Which is fine, and I believe, do I Sleep Talk here? Nope, I'm going to make a double out into Sylveon, and I'm glad I did, because I take on the Sandy Shocks really well. Volt Switch is going to come out. Do I just throw off another Hyper Voice? I am throwing off another Wish, and I Protect this turn, again, trying to scout for the Scarf and see what he locks into, but it's Swords Dance, it's not Scarf, and I'm like, uh-oh. That's really bad. I make the hard pivot out into Samurott just to kind of sack it off from here. He is going to Dire Claw, and it is going to do a ton of damage. He scouts for the Scarf by pivoting out into the Cyclizar, which makes sense. And this is kind of a big blunder for me. Me not really thinking too much about him not being Scarf and just realizing, okay, if I have a Wish in the Eye, I can go into Pult anyways. But not the biggest deal in the world. U-Turn's going to come out into my Sylveon, which is at least at full health right now. This turn, I am going to make that hard Samurott pivot just to kind of sack it off into this guy right here. Next up, my Pult's going to come out. I believe I do just click Draco Meteor, yeah, because it does pick a KO somewhere, and it covers the Cyclizar pivot. This is where we find out it is going to be Sash variant, but thankfully from here I can just U-turn to pick it off, as Chien-Pao comes in to try and take advantage of us being -2, but U-turn's still going to chunk this thing, right? Do a clean 43 even with the minus attack, just because Chien-Pao's not very bulky. Get out into my Torkoal, and again, going to put myself in a pretty good spot here going forward. Out comes the Sandy Shocks. I'm going to Sleep Talk. I get an Ancient Power instead of a Lava Plume, unfortunately, but not too big of a deal. We're obviously Ancient Power for the Moltres as well. Volt Switch is going to come out into my Sylveon, and then out comes Sneasler once again. Now, we got to go hard pull. Not going to let this thing SD for free. Not going to let it get the Unburden boost, as Dire Claw does Dire Claw things, and it is going to para me immediately. Shadow Claw comes out, but thankfully we do break through and we do knock out the Sneasler from 55 with the Draco. Out comes Cyclizar as a U-turn is going to pick me off, and he's going to get a little bit of regen back right there, as Chien-Pao is going to be the next pivot. I'm able to get out in my Torkoal because of this. I believe I do just click Sleep Talk one more time, burn my last turn of sleep. No, I double into Sylveon. Look at me. I'm already forgetting. I literally just rewatched this game. As I do get off a Wish right here, and this should just be a free Hyper Voice, right? It should be a pretty free Hyper Voice. Yep. So do get off a Hyper Voice. This Fidef drop does kind of suck, but it's not the end of the world at the very least. Earth Power is going to pop again, as I do just Hyper Voice to pick this thing off and to it KO it. Then out comes the Chien-Pao. He makes a little bit of an over-aggressive play here and going for a crunch. I didn't need to switch at this point. I don't think I need this Pokemon to win. I still have Choice Band, Extreme Speed, Arcanine. That doesn't die to anyone move from the Cyclizar anyways. And even if he Dracos, then my Torkoal beats it 1v1. So I felt pretty comfortable. Sylveon's just going to get to pick an extra KO there, which is obviously nice. Rapid Spin is going to come out from the Cyclizar, but again, I should be fine. I go into Arcanine. The only way this thing can threaten me is with the Draco Meteor. I do just E-Speed for 61, so this is what I mean when I was fine. If I got crit there, I was still okay with Torkoal, unless I got, you know, absolutely boned by another crit or something. But yeah, we're able to win this game 2-0. Able to move to first in the league, I believe, after this game especially, because we were both 1 and 2 at the very least. So we're able to pull ahead a little bit, and again, first and second seed, I believe, get a guaranteed bye round 1, and I really want that. So yeah, definitely a really fun game, despite it's kind of bringing quick teams. But I'll be right back with week number 8. Alrighty, week number 8, we're going up against Kurt the Buzzwole, another guy who has been uploading recently and been jumping back on the Wi-Fi grind. I'm going to go ahead and leave him in the description below. He didn't upload this league, obviously, but he's been uploading a lot of Wi-Fi content. He's another guy that I've known for a long time in the community. I'll go ahead and link him down in the description below. He has a pretty interesting team right here. You're going to see the Iron Bundle. That is a Terra Fairy Delphox. It could also be Grass or Psychic. I forget, but I know it's Fairy here. Then we have Goodra Hisui. We have a Lycanroc Midnight, which is a Pokemon. And then we have Hatterene plus Crocodile. So some decently big threats on the opposing side. Let me show you what we got. We got a Choice Specs Pult. Again, look at it. Just look at my boy. Look at the Ghost Resist. It's just the Dragapult, or the Crocodile, which isn't the most, reliable one. Hydro Pump is a pretty clean neutral click into a lot of things. It also like nukes the Crocodile, which is nice. And then we have Draco U-turn Shadow Ball. Pretty simple. We're going to be clicking Shadow Ball 90% of the time. Then we have a Boots, Spadef, Sylveon. Who would have thought that we're going to bring the same set again? But if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like, it works really well. This is like one of the best bundle checks in the game, in my opinion. Especially with Boots. No hazards are going to stop me from switching it on thing forever. Even Specs Hydro Pumps. And then we also have an AV Hammerot. It can live a hit from things like Bundle, and we also just get up a ton of spikes. It's a great lead in this game, in my opinion. Clear Amulet, Arcanine, Hisui. Really nice to catch things like the Crocodile. We are Terra Normal here with Double Edge Close Combat, Extreme Speed, and Flare Blitz. No Head Smash, because it wasn't super needed here, in my opinion. And then we have the Tauros, making its debut here with Body Slam, Close Combat, Assurance, Earthquake. There was a ghost on the bench. I forget what it was, but that's what Assurance was for. I totally forget what the ghost was, but trust me, it was here for something. Just not that we're ever going to look at this game. Then we have a Physically Defensive Mudsdale. Pretty simple. Earthquake, Body Press, Stealth Rock, and Roar. Just to get away, potential setup threats, because there's a lot of them. Alright, that being said, let's do it. I do lead off with my Samurott. Like I said, I think it leads well into a lot. It leads well into this Hatterene, especially as I can't just Ceaseless Edge it. It's not going to Oko me with anything. You see, that's a pretty offensive set right there, doing 79. I decided to save this thing because it's still really strong offensively. As a Trick Room goes up into my Arcanine, and a Psychic comes out here, which is really strong. I do elect to throw off a Flare Blitz, which does 61. But this upcoming turn, I do just Terra Normal and throw off an E-Speed. This is my only Terra target this game. Hisuian Lilligant didn't even come. Out comes the Lycanroc. That's fine with me. I have a pretty darn good check in my Mudsdale. This thing can't ever do anything to me. In fact, as I do take 0 from that Stone Edge, I'm just going to get my Stealth Rock here. I could have knocked this thing out, but it's not the biggest deal in the world. Out comes a Swords Dance and a Trailblaze, so +1 basically does a whole 28%, and I'm just going to be able to knock this thing out with the Body Press. There wasn't much that it was doing to me personally, so... yeah, we're able to bring it down pretty low. Out comes Iron Bundle, and this thing shows to not be Boots and Booster Speed, so I know my Sylveon stuffs it to the end of the universe, as you do just take a Hydro Pump. I wish this upcoming turn, which I think was a bit of a bad play, because now I'm just going to get Encored, which isn't good. I do have a Sack and Hisuian Samurott, and then I could just come in and Hyper Voice afterwards, but... not ideal, at the very least. We do get Frozen there, but thankfully he just attacks me the next turn, picks me off, doesn't go on anything set up scary to take advantage of my freeze, and then a Hydro Pump's gonna come out. I just Hyper Voice this time, not getting Encored, as we do knock out the bundle. Out comes the Hisuian Gudra right here. I do make the pivot into Mudsdale in case this is like some kind of Acid Armor Body Press set. We do see a Heavy Slam do absolutely nothing to me. Draco is going to miss, which does matter a lot for differential in my opinion. Earthquake knocks this thing out, which is crazy. That makes me think it was pretty offensive or it was minus defense for some reason. But regardless, this next turn, I do just Earthquake on the Delphox coming in. It does Terra Fairy and Calm Mind, but I do 2-hit KO with that pretty easy, as the Psychic is going to come out. Do I Roar here? I do Roar, which I think was a bad play. I probably just should have Earthquake, but oh well, not the biggest deal in the world. Moxie Crocodile comes out. This thing isn't going to be able to kill me from here because I'm already +2 defense, as they do just Body Press and knock it out. And then lastly, Delphox is going to come back out. It is going to be able to pick me off, but it's not too big of a deal. I just prevent it from setting up by Earthquaking. And then Dragon Bolt's going to come out as I Shadow Ball. I super threw some differential there by not just Earthquaking with Mudsdale and picking off the Delphox instead of Roaring. But oh well, you know, what can you do? Not too big of a deal. If it was Grass Knot, it would have just killed me anyway. So like, I should have just Earthquake. There's no reason to Roar. I saw that I very easily 2-hit KO'd, but... like I said, you live and you learn. Sometimes you make inoptimal plays, and that happened a lot this season, I noticed. In watching back the season, there was a couple of really dumb plays that I've kind of called out that I'm like, but why did we do that? But we're able to take home a 4-0 dub, which is obviously very, very nice. And, yeah, really quick game, honestly. Wow. Tauros didn't get to come out in his debut, but it got a win in its books, so maybe it'll come later in the season. Alright, lastly, we're going up against Shane, or Lord of Cold. Someone, again, I played a ton back in the day, so it's cool to be able to play him again right here. You see the squad that he's rocking out with. You see the trademark Hippowdon that he always seems to draft. At least in every league that I used to play with him, I feel like he always had a Hippowdon on the team. We also have a Diancie, Roaring Mid, Arcanine, which can be Terra Fairy, and one other typing, the Magneton, which can be Terra Grass and Terra Ice, I believe, and then Zora Kisui. So there's lots of really scary threats in the squad. You see the team we're rocking out with, again, Boots Hydro Pump Pult, which is really weird that I brought this like 3 times this season. I think I've maybe brought Hydro Pump on Pult 1 or 2 other times ever, maybe. Like if you guys watched the classic season that we won and uploaded a movie on, I brought Hydro Pump Pult 1 time all season. It was the Garganacl matchup, and never did again. I brought 3 times this season, but it's really nice for like neutral click into like Arcanine, Hippowdon, does a ton of those things, especially if they're Spadef, which is really nice. Then we have a Lumberry Samurott. We are Lum for like Will-O-Wisps and things like that. Razor Shell, Ceaseless Edge, Shaker Sword, Sucker Punch. Pretty strong on this matchup. Fish Def, Rocky Helmet, and Mudsdale checks the moon really, really well. We are Clear Amulet, Terra Rock, Hisuian Lilligant, Terra Blast to blow up the Arcanine, and we are Clear Amulet, so we can't get Intim to buy it. Then we have Boots, Spadef, Sylveon. Same moveset as every week. I'm not going to talk about it anymore. And then we have an Archon that's also Boots. We're Head Smash, Blitz, Extreme Speed, and Will-O-Wisp to catch things like the Hippowdon, wanting to switch in really easy. We can burn them and put ourselves in a pretty good spot. Alright, that being said, let's jump into it. I do elect to lead off with my Samurott. I think it does really well offensively in this matchup, and it gets up spikes immediately. It also covers like a Will-O-Wisp from like a random Zoroark lead. I can just Ceaseless Edge immediately, or even just Razor, Shell, depending on what it is. As we do see, it is the Hippowdon because we see Sandstorm. So that means I can just throw off the Razor Shell immediately. Unfortunately, we miss, which isn't fun. We do get Body Press for a good 62, and I go, okay, that's That's really bad, right? I need to get something out of this. I need to get a spike up. There's no removal on the other side, and if I get the spike up, it's up there to stay. And we're going to click Ceaseless Edge, and we're going to miss. I want you guys to remember the rest of this game in the context is imagine if there was a spike up right now. So we do get picked off right here with the... what do you call it? Body press. I was pretty tilted. I go into my Lilligant, and this is where I start overplaying a little bit. I'm like, okay, he's gonna go into Arcanine. He's not gonna let me attack, or he's not gonna let me, try and get too out of hands with this thing. I'm gonna Terra Blast, catch it, do a ton of damage on the switch in. He stays in and just roars me, or whirlwinds me, which is a bit unfortunate. Again on Arcanine, I said, no, you're gonna get up your rocks. I'm burning you. Which he didn't get up his rocks, but he did an earthquake, so that's fine. I'm able to, chip him down get him burned right there. Then I'm gonna go ahead and go onto my Mudsdale. We're gonna take more Rocky Helmet here, and this turn I say, okay, get him more rocks. We're getting them up. Rocks are going up. Slack Off does come out right here, which is fine. Rocks are up, and those rocks are up to stay, like I said. So imagine if there was a rock and a spike the entire game. Whirlwind's going to come out into my Lilligant Hisui, then again into Arcanine, unfortunately. Once again, going to go on to Lilligant. I know that I can live any one hit from this thing pretty darn comfortably with it burned, as it does only do 40%. This turn, I'm just Leaf Blade. We're not playing around. I'm going to knock this thing out. I do get a crit, so a little bit of justice there. Rocky Helmet's going to pop, but oh well. Out comes the Roaring Moon, so I go into my Mudsdale, but good disguise by Shane here because this is a Zoroark. Thankfully, it's not like Specs, which would have Twiki the shit out of my Mudsdale, but I am going to make the pivot out because I want health on it for the Roaring Moon. Unfortunately, I'm going to get crits, but I've dropped again here on my Sylveon. This game has not been going well for your hero. I do wish up here immediately, and I'm going to try and pivot out into Arcanine, but we do see an Analytic Terra Blast, and that is just going to blow up my Arcanine, so I didn't really calc there. That was a pretty bad play, but I did get out of my Dragapult right here. I am just going to U-turn on the DNC coming in. It's going to take a little bit of damage from the rocks, which is great. Then Mudsdale's going to come out, and there's not really a great Earthquake switch in, so I'm pretty comfortable doing that. Unfortunately, this is going to be a Reflect DNC, which makes it a little bit more annoying. I'm going to switch out to save the health on this in case it is Moonblast, get my Sylveon, and just throw up a Wish here, because there's no reason not to at this point, right? So, I do just throw up a Wish. I am going to make the pivot out into Mudsdale, get back up to full. We also see that the Arcanine is not rocking with boots right here, so it's nice and weakened right now, already at 44 due to rocks, Flare Blitz, and Helmet. I'm going to make the double out of Lilligant, just because I don't want my Mudsdale taking any more damage. It does show to be Power of Solar Beam, which does knock out my Lilligant from there, but we are at least able to burn that. I'm going to go out into Pult, just off a big Hydro Pump. Hydro Pump actually genuinely claims a KO there, which is pretty funny. Out comes the Yancey. I don't kill it from here yet if it is Spadefdia, so I'm going to make the pivot out, go into Sylveon on a Draining Kiss. It doesn't look like it gets too much back. It's basically at where it was before it switched in, so no gain, or no gain, no loss really. As I do Wish, and then I'll Protect on the Magneton getting off a Volt Switch. I don't believe I've confirmed item on this thing yet. I think I do just throw off a big Wish right here as a Flash Cannon comes out, showing that's not choice. Get out of my Dragapult. I know I can live an Analytic Flash Cannon, get back up to full, and again, try and gain some offensive momentum back. We're going to go ahead and go for a U-turn right here. I could have Hydro Pumped into it, KO'd it, but oh well. I could have also Shadow Ball potentially, but I figured U-turn was a little bit smarter. Diamond Storm's going to come out as I Wish, and then this next turn, I'm going to Protect, as my opponent does. Again, just throw off a Diamond Storm. Probably trying to just catch me being over-aggressive into a Magneton pivot or something of the sort. So I do Wish here. Again, Diamond Storm's doing a lot of damage, but my Sylveon should be able to take it on as long as he doesn't get any crits. And the moment he misses, I super beat it 1v1. He makes a good play there, though, and finally goes out into that Magneton. As I go into my Mudsdale just to sack it off. I think I need everything else. Basically, at this point, my plan is hoping he's not Booster Moon. If he's Booster Moon, then I lose. So that's really bad. Or Scarf Zoroark, which is another big thing. So I am just going to Shadow Ball into this very Eviolite Magneton, by the way, is it does click Flash Cannon, do clean 74. Deancey's going to be the next pivot out. Only do 20%, and after leftovers, again, Hydro Pump does look like it is a roll, especially depending on how Spadef he is. So I am going to make the pivot out into Sylveon. No reason not to. I believe this turn I am just going to go ahead and throw off a Wish as Roaring Moon does come out. Again, this is Zoroark though. I do make a play of Hyper Voicing as a trick comes out, and this thing giving me its Scarf is huge, right? Because now genuinely there is a chance that I can win if this Roaring Moon is not going to be, what do you call it? Booster Speed. If it's not Booster Speed, then my Pult wins. Shadow Ball's going to come out. This is doing nothing to Sylveon. I do just go ahead and throw off another Moonblast. If you're Moonblast in this game, just in case it was Throat Chop Moon, don't want to be walled by it. out comes Deancey, and I think this is the wrong play. I think that maybe his Magneton got outsped or something. Maybe he just didn't have another play, because now from here, I do win with my Pult if it's not booster speed. So I do just throw off a Moonblast. It does get a defense boost on this Diamond Storm. I'm not necessarily going to be able to 1v1 this thing, but I am going to put in guaranteed range of Shadow Ball. So that's fine with me. Diamond Storm's going to come out one more time, and then I'm going to go into my Pult. And again, like I said, we just got to hope that this thing is not booster speed or Scarf. If it's not, we can win. Out comes the Roaring Moon. We see no booster, no Scarf. It gets knocked out by a Draco, and then out comes the Magneton. But thankfully, with how low it is, with the rocks up, we're in a good spot to win. I'd also like you to imagine, again, if that spike was up, Pult would have won a lot sooner. A lot sooner. But it's okay. We were able to pull it out. That was a really close one. A really hacksy one, too. Man, I got pretty damn unlucky in that game, and I was still able to pull it out, so I was pretty happy with that one. We went into playoffs at the #1 seed, which means that we got a bye round 1. We played the winner of, X versus X. I think it was Lindo versus, I forget who we played. But we ended up playing Lindo, which was our week 1 opponent in round 1 of playoffs. So nice little rematch right away. I'll jump ahead right to that. Alright, semifinals, we're up against Lindo, and as you can see, his team is drastically different. So it's really not even that much of a rematch. We're kind of just playing against the same person again, but a completely different team. We do still have things like an Amorous, but outside of that, I don't think there's a similar, same mon that we played last time. We have an Iron Treads, a Tauros Paldia Blaze, Umbreon, which can Terra, the Samurott regular, so Samurott mirror match, and the Spectrier. Now, this is a really scary matchup. It took me a long time to kind of come up with a squad for this one, but I was pretty happy with what we came up with. First up, again, Boots Pult. Does really well here. There's also, I think, a Web Threat on the other side, so I really, no, there wasn't Web Threat. I don't remember what it was. I think it was just spikes and things like that. Because if it's Boots, or if it's Webs, don't worry about it, I can just go Clear Body. But regardless, we're Infiltrated with Draco Meteor, U-Turn, Shadow Ball, and Flamethrower. Infiltrator is also really nice in the case that it is a sub-Spectre. We can always just blow it up with a Shadow Ball behind a sub. So that's obviously a very great aspect of this. This Pokemon just goes hard this game. Outspeeds everything, does a lot of damage to everything not named Umbreon. Then we have Samurott Hisui with a Choice Scarf. We are Ceaseless Edge, Aqua Jet, Aqua Cutter, and Brick Break. There was Veil on the other side, or screens in general, so I wanted Brick Break over Sacred Sword. Other than that, this thing's just very strong. If you look at the opposing side, Aqua Cutter is really strong against this team. The water resist is going to be Samurott Hisui. So clicking Aqua Cutter is going to be really nice. And Spike is obviously great, and it's nice having a Dark type that is scarfed faster than a non-scarfed, Spectre, which is really great. Then, next up, we got Bronzong. We are Max Speed F set, Iron Head, Body Press, Stealth Rock, Psychic. This is here to chip down, take on the Enamorous. Pretty simple, it gets up rocks. Decent mon overall. And we have Arcanine Hisui. We are Terra Normal this week with Heavy Duty Boots, Rockhead, Flare Blitz, Head Smash, Extreme Speed, and Psychic Fangs. Again, there was some screens on the other side. I think the Psychic Fangs was for that, as well as hitting the Tauros decently hard on the switch in. If, I believe it was Abomasnow on the other side still. So if, Abomasnow wants to set up the screen, it's pretty obvious that the Tauros is probably going to be the pivot in. We can Psychic Fangs, break the screens, and do a decent amount of damage, so I thought that was a pretty nice little tech. Then we have our GOAT making its debut, Grafaiai with Black Slush. We are Prankster with Knockoff, Parting Shot, Toxic, and Encore. Pretty simple stuff. We're here to knock off the Spectre, check it well defensively. Psychic and Mudshot do a lot of damage to us, but we can always Encore if it wants to start setting up, which is the main thing. And then we have 2 Mons outspeed and nuke it otherwise, and it can't really click Shadow Ball against us, which is, again, very valuable. We then have Lilligant Hisui, which is going to be Lumberry with Hustle, Terra Fighting this week with Close Combat, Ice Spinner, Leaf Blade, and Victory Dance. Really solid mon. We are Lumberry, in particular, for the Umbreon on the other side, wanting to Will-O-Wisp us, or Thunder Wave us, sorry. So, didn't want to get Thunder Wave, or Will-O-Wisp from the Spectre, because it can't Oko us. So, yeah, that being said, let's jump right into it. So, we do elect to lead off with our Samurott. Again, it puts on immediate offensive pressure, and I would also love to get up 1 spike early. I think that's very nice, as we do see a lead Samurott. I figured it would maybe be lead Iron Treads into this matchup, especially with how good it is offensively into me. It gets up rocks and knocks off pretty freely, but we do just click the Ceaseless Edge, get off a spike. As Brick Break comes down, that does 2-hit KO, so I want to save this thing, keep it around for later. Lilligant is going to be my pivot in here on the Brick Break. as Tauros probably Ablaze is going to come out. I do just like Terra and CC because it's really strong here. Knocks out the Samurott from there, and I do, what, 57 to that thing, which is crazy strong. I can just go ahead and click it again. I'm fine with trading a little bit of helmet damage. And Amber's going to come in on a miss, which is a bit unfortunate, but not the end of the world, as you'll see. Superpower does come out, just 37, so this is very, very physically based on this thing. But no matter what, I will be able to get off a big Iron Head, or a Flash Cannon, sorry. Was that Flash Cannon? I think I changed it to Flash Cannon last second. Okay, because I know I played this on my work computer, but then my team on my original computer has Iron Head. I must have known that fucking physical was coming to switch to Flash Cannon, so I'm like, damn, this isn't going to do much with the Iron Head. So I did switch to Flash Cannon. Okay, I'm sorry about that. That was like a break in, like, character from me. I was like, wait a minute. Okay, so we do got the Flash Cannon. Thankfully, despite this thing being at +3, it's not boosted in speed. And if it's Scarf, then my Dragapult is immune to it. So I can just go in and click Shadow Ball. I'm not going to play around with it. Terra Fairy, Umbreon's going to come out. I'm going to Will-O-Wisp because that'll make Foul Play do nothing to me. It'll make Physical Terra Blast do nothing to me. It'll also allow him to not Thunder Wave me on the switch in because I'm going to be able to burn him and burn myself. So a little bit of an aggressive play, but I also really love the chip that this burn offers. It gets rid of any potential leftovers. If this thing was leftovers, it's not as well, but I really like that aspect of it. And allows a pretty free Arcanine as the Tauros probably Ablaze is going to come out, and I'm just going to pick it off with a Head Smash as it tried to get in on a potential miss or something of the sort. So down it goes. Out comes the Iron Treads right here, and it does show booster speed, and this is really scary at this point, and I kind of have to evaluate what my least valuable member is up to this point. And currently, as weird as it sounds, because Arcanine is really strong here, I think it's Arcanine. Now, I could have been wrong in this regards, but I really wanted everything else. I felt Lilligant was still a very solid win con with the Lumberry. It could set up on potentially the Umbreon and hopefully cleave through that way. I felt like my Grafai was really important to not lose to a Scarf Spectrier. I really didn't want to lose to Scarf Spectrier, and he could have totally brought in that set this week. Samurott was a really solid endgame win con, and this Dragapult's the only thing that lives a hit from this Iron Tread. So as good as Arcanine is at this point, I felt like it was my least valuable member. I am going to Earthquake, or take the Earthquake and just get knocked out. I'm going to go into Pult right here because Flamethrower, it does not kill from this range, but what it will do is it'll put in range of Aqua Jet from Samurott Hisuian, which I did bring in case, you know, there were some scary Scarfers that outspeeded my Scarf Samurott that I could pick off with an Aqua Jet when they're weakened. Like this thing with a booster, Scarf Spec, Scarf Enamorous, things like that. Even Scarf Tauros, obviously, would outspeed me and kill me with a close combat, so I do just click Flamethrower. We do force out the Treads, which is really good, because now I have two things that outspeed it, opposed to nothing that outspeeds it. So, very valuable for me. I'm going to go ahead and U-turn. You can tell him was at work, because it'd be back in 5, because someone needed something. We're going to go ahead and see a Moonlight here from this Umbreon. I do just Leaf Blade. I'm trying to keep this thing as low as possible, because I'm realizing the lower I keep this thing, the better of a position I'm going to be in. Foul Play does a decent amount to me, 16% here. I'm just going to kind of victory dance on a potential Moonlight. I want to keep this thing as low as possible, and I'm going to Leaf Blade. If I get a crit and knock this thing out too, which I believe I might have there, I would have been in a really good spot to just win the game. Was there not Lum on this thing? Or did it get knocked off? I'm wondering if this team was just completely changed into something else. But we're going to see a Leaf Blade. I am going to knock out this thing after getting parried the turn before. Out comes Iron Treads, and this is fine because this is a position I really wanted. This Umbreon is low enough to where I can come in with Aqua Cutter, and as long as it's not Scarf Spectrier, I'm pretty close to winning with, what do you call it? My Samurott. As out comes the Spectrier, and again, this is fine. I get the Flamethrower off. I do 34. I want to scout for Scarf, so I go into Fire. It's not needed otherwise. Makes a pretty aggressive Mud Shot play. It's going to do 59 and drop my speed, but this is Life Orb, so that's completely fine with me. I know that I win with my Samurott now. Mud Shot's going to come out. It's going to knock me out. I just thought for Toxic, because why not? I don't really have a better click, and Toxic was pretty okay. Samurott is going to come out, and I'm just going to be able to click Aqua Cutter 4 times and win the game. So we were able to position the Samurott suite pretty well. I'm sorry that the team on my computer isn't like as updated as the one on my laptop where I end up playing this game. But I don't think it matters too much. We were able to get the win here. And yeah, we're able to knock out everything from here. So big Samurott coming up clutch. It's the first like Samurott like win con like go crazy game that we've had so far. So the one Hisui Pokemon to not get the thumbnail, by the way, which is pretty funny considering it's definitely the best of the 3. But hey, we'll take it. We're able to win this game 2-0 and a really close one with Lindo. Again, he'll be linked in the description. I know that he is uploading, and I want to make sure that you guys are going and showing, like, you know, the creators in this league. There's not that many of them, but the people who do upload, you should show them some love. All right. And then we'll be right back here with finals, as you can see. Alrighty guys, here we are with finals up against Lime. As you guys kind of saw, where I accidentally clicked over tabs immediately. But we did make finals. We're playing Lime again. And like I said in week 7, we saved some sets because we really wanted to make sure that we had, the best team humanly possible going into a potential playoff rematch. And we ended up getting them in finals. So you guys ready to see the crazy changes we had? That's it. I changed Flamethrower to Will-O-Wisp on Dragapult. The rest of the team is the same. Now, this is some meta-analysis, right? If you ever play me in a league, or you're a buddy watching this, or you're someone in a Wi-Fi league I play with that's watching this, one of my biggest weaknesses as a builder is rematches. I feel like I always have the best ideas in my first build, and I really, 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 really struggle with making improvements on my builds. I really do. Even if it's in 15-20 minutes, I think I'm a generally fast builder in general. So that last build in 15 minutes, I looked at it and I sat there for like an hour on call one night. I think I was with Ant. And you could probably ask him. I just didn't know what to change. I felt like my team was good. I felt like I could play it better than I did in the first one. But I felt like I covered most things. And there was a ton of things on that build that were needed that weren't covered in previous builds, or previous parts of the build. So yeah, definitely interesting to just like not have what do you call it, a change in builds at all, besides one move. But I felt like it was best, to be completely honest. So I feel like I don't really need to go for the team too much. Like I said, we changed Will-O-Wisp to Pult over Flamethrower, which has been unfortunate because Tinkaton came this time, but it doesn't resist Shadow Ball, and I feel like I'm not very weak to Tinkaton, honestly. I didn't think it would come. And I like the Will-O-Wisp to spread burns and things like that. Really, really valuable in that, right? Then we have again, Chople Berry, Samurott, Breast Talk, Protective Pads, Terra Rock, Choice Band, Terra Normal, and then Wish Baton Pass, Sylveon with Boots. Nice and simple this week. So let's go ahead. We're going to jump right into it. We do see a Tinkaton lead into my Arcanine. I want to lead this thing and pick a KO. Now, in my head, I don't think this thing is going to stay in. I don't. We do have a very solid fire resist in the back, in both Vapo and Quillfish. So in my head, I'm like, okay, for sure, just going to head smash this turn. I'm going to blow one of those things up. We saw Quillfish took like 60+% from a head smash last time. Vapo will get to it KO'd. This Tinkaton, if it came, it had to have come for a reason, right? Probably to check things like Pult, live a hit from Lilligant Hisui. It also gives him a rock resist if I ever lock it later. So I figured, no way he stays in. But he got up his rocks, and I missed head smash. So not a great start to a finals game, as they do make the pivot out into Tinkaton right here. I'm immediately going to get knocked off. Which is pretty unfortunate. Out comes Sandy Shocks. You're going to see the photosynthesis special attack this time. So Smart Bring on his end to try and take advantage of my son. I'm going to go on to Sylveon, though. I still do take this on very easily, as you can see. And we're going to go ahead and take a Volt Switch right here. I believe I do just Wish Up. And I'm going to get out into my Samurott because I want to get up Spikes. T-Spikes are going to go up on my side of the field, which is a bit annoying, but I do have Boots on a lot of really important Pokemon that I want to make sure stay healthy. As we do get offset Ceaseless Edge on the Tinkaton, I'm going to make the pivot out into Arcanine, but after the Poison and the Rocks and a knockoff, I'm actually in range of a Gigaton Hammer, and this thing is faster than me. I do click the Terra Normal, but it doesn't really matter, and I think that was a little bit dumb to click Terra Normal for no reason, but not the end of the world. My Torkoal is going to come out. It is already going to be poisoned and take rocks. You can see the early GG in the side because I think I lose from here. We're going to see a burn on the Quillfish, thankfully, on this Lava Plume, which is really big because this is going to allow me to very, very, very comfortably get off a rest unless he elects to want to click the taunt. I am just going to rest this upcoming turn. The Quillfish is also very burned, so it's not, or very low now because of the burn and the spike and taking the Lava Plume. So we're in a pretty good position from this point. I'm going to make the double out into Samurott Hisui, and this is awesome because now I get up Spikes. Very, very freely, I'm going to get up some Spikes. I'm just going to Ceaseless Edge this thing and take, as it takes 32. Puts me in a really good spot. And then this next turn, Quillfish is going to come out, but that's okay with me. I'm completely fine with it. I am just going to Ceaseless Edge. This thing's going to take a little bit more damage, which again, all good. We're at -1 though, so no reason to really want to stay in here. I'm going to get out into my Lilligant to try and exert some offensive pressure right now. With 3 Spikes, it does do really well. Unfortunately, Barb Barrage is going to come out, and I kind of forgot that regular Quillfish also gets this move, and that does a ton of damage to me because of the poison already on me, even despite the burn. So that's a bit unfortunate. We do get a crit with the Leaf Blade, bringing this thing down nice and low, but Lilligant is going to trade for this. Trade for damage on this. So we're really low. Things aren't looking great, but we do have the Boots Pult in the back, which also still looks great right now. If you look at my opponent's team, there's not much that deals with Pult with 3 Spikes up. This dies soon. This dies, obviously. this thing gets V1v1. It's just the POW, which I do still technically have my Torkoal for. So it's not completely impossible, despite how bad it looks right now. Out comes the Tinkaton. I am just going to click a big U-turn right here. I'm going to get out into Sylveon. I believe I just end up sacking it off right here because I don't think it really is worth having right now, being that it only beats Sandy Shocks. I know I'm faster than Sandy Shocks. I know it's not choice, and I know I could pick it off with a Shadow Ball. I also know it's not speed boosting in the sun, so I don't have to worry about that with my Torkoal. Out comes my Torkoal next. I'm just going to try and burn a Sleep Turn right here. I believe I do just click Sleep Talk. There we go. We're going to get an Ancient Power. Do a nice clean 8% to my boy here. Then we're going to get out into Samurott Hisui right now as a Wish comes up. But I have a pretty free Sacred Sword right now. I can prevent this Tinkaton from getting healthy, which is what we are going to do. I do click the Sacred Sword, and I do pick it off. Now, Sneaky Sword could have come in, but everything else actually died to Sacred Sword from there. So I was pretty comfortable with it. I am going to save my Samurott as a potential sack later on, as a Fake Out does come out, and that's interesting to know. I know this thing isn't choice now. Out comes the Vapo, which is going to take the spikes and get completely knocked out. Out comes Chien-Pao, and I think this is the point in which I'm like, okay, time to sack off the Samurott Hisui. It did its work. It did a great job here. Getting up 3 spikes and preventing that Wish into the Tinkaton made things much, much more possible. I do just go ahead and go for a Sleep Talk right here into the Sneasler. I do unfortunately get a rest, which is a little bit unfortunate, but I can take this next turn to live any hit that this thing wants to go for and just rest it up, which is really good. The reason he didn't go hard into the Sandy Shocks is because if I got the Lava Plume, he died and then lost. Pretty much immediately. So I'm going to make the pivot out here because I want to keep this thing healthy to where I can still take a crunch after hazards from the Chien-Pao. It really needs to, in fact. So Close Combat's going to come out here into my Sneasler, or into my Dragapult. I do just click Shadow Ball here. I live any one hit from this thing at this point. Even a Shadow Claw crit did not kill me because I am at full health, and then I'm going to be able to pick it off with the second Shadow Ball. Next up is the scary play right here. So what ends up happening right now is he's going to go into Chien-Pao. Ooh, there we go. He's going to go into Chien-Pao, right? And this leads to a really, really scary 50-50. Because what he can do is he can Ice Shard or Sucker Punch if he's feeling a little bit frisky in order to pick me off, knock me out. Then he wins with Sandy Shocks. Guaranteed, right? But if I make the play into Torkoal, I get the Rest Talk and I knock out the Sandy Shock coming in, or I knock out this Chien-Pao with a Lava Plume, it's a wrap, right? It makes it a little bit more scary for him. So in my head, this is a 50-50 of whether or not he's going to double out, or if he's just going to stay in and attack and go for damage on me, or go for the 2-hit KO or like the damage on Torkoal or whatever it might be. So in my head, I'm going to call the double, and I'm just going to Draco. I think he's going to double into Sandy Shocks. I feel like it gives him the safest endgame. My Pult can't come back in on an Earth Power, which means he would just seal up the game right there. The game would be over. I do click Draco Meteor. I do catch the double into the Sandy Shocks. We knock it out, and from here, I'm in an okay spot. I can just go ahead and click Will-O-Wisp right here. Burn this thing. It is going to knock me out with a crunch still. Lava Plume was also fine. Get out into my Torkoal, and from here, I am just going to Sleep Talk and hopefully pull a Lava Plume here soon. Crunch only does 18, gets a defense drop, but that's completely fine. As a Sleep Talk, I get Ancient Power, so not a Lava Plume, unfortunately. Got a lot of Ancient Powers with no Moltres here. And then this next turn, we do end up getting the Lava Plume. As long as we didn't get crit the next turn, we were still fine, even with the defense drop. And we're able to win the finals here. A really, really close game with Lime. I was really happy with that. I remember it was super intense in the moment. Like, calling that double at the end was really, really scary for me. But I think it was a good play, and I'm pretty proud of it. So yeah, we were able to win the championship here. We only lost week 3 to Blaze, and other than that, I guess other than that, it would have been a perfect season. I guess it's a dumb thing to say because it wasn't a perfect season because I lost once. But pretty damn close to it. I think I played really well, and I was happy to finally be able to bring you guys a movie season. Again, showing that Pult's broken, 2 championships in 10-9. Pult has both of them because that's the Draft League GOAT. If you guys want to see more movies like this, please let me know in the comments below. I have 2 on the horizon. I kind of mentioned one earlier in GPL, the Custom Mega League. I think I had a really cool season there. But also the idea of doing my Smoke on Low Tier run. It's been a really long tournament. I don't know how far I'm going to go in it. It's still happening right now. I think we're in like round 8 or something like that. Don't know how far I'm going to go, but after that end, if you guys would like to see the Low Tier Draft League tournament that I'm playing in right now, please let me know. Drop a like if you enjoyed. Again, sub if you're new. It really helps me out. It really helps push the channel out to other people. And I really want to get to 3,000 by the end of the year, and I'd really appreciate if you help me out along that goal. And yeah, with that being said, I think that's about it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Later.